meteorologist Siobhan Moxie Bonamy. Siobhan, as we track Tropical Storm Nicole, we're going to get right into it. The storm is active, and we want you to give us the latest update on this storm. Where is it right now?
Okay, good evening, Bahamas, and thank you for having me here. The extreme northern Bahamas remains under hurricane warning. That means hurricane conditions are likely to be experienced within the next 36 hours. At 7 p.m., Tropical Storm Nicole was located about 190 miles east-northeast of Treasure Key, 180 miles to the east-northeast of Marsh Harbor, 225 miles east-northeast of McLeanstown, 275 miles east-northeast of Freeport, about 290 miles to the east-northeast of West End, and about 325 miles east-northeast of Bimini. Nicole is moving toward the west-northwest near 10 miles per hour, and the maximum sustained winds remains at 65 miles per hour with higher gusts. However, it is very likely that by tomorrow, Wednesday, Nicole will become a hurricane. Sustained tropical storm force winds should have already began being experienced in Abaco, and those will spread to East Grand Bahama by about 10 o'clock tonight, and toward the city of Freeport around midnight tonight, and West End and Bimini by 2 a.m. tomorrow morning. Other impacts relating to Nicole would be storm surge. We do expect storm surge in the magnitude of about 4 to 6 feet, mainly across northern Abaco and Grand Bahama Island. We also expect rainfall in the amount of 3 to 5 inches, with maximum about 7 inches over mostly northern Abaco, and about 2 to 4 inches over the remaining south central Abaco, Grand Bahama, and Bimini. Outer rain bands, we've already begun to feel those this evening, and those will continue overnight tonight through tomorrow as the storm makes its approach from the east. Okay, that's the latest right now on Nicole.
Okay, and as of right now, in Grand Bahama, you mentioned that the conditions have already begun to deteriorate, but right now, what are residents in Grand Bahama, Bimini, and Abaco experiencing?
Well, right now, we're getting outer rain bands, and within those rain bands are gusty winds. Those gusts have been above tropical storm force, which is 34 knots, or 39 miles an hour. And those will be continually increasing the gusts and the sustained winds associated with the bands as the system gets closer toward the extreme northern islands. It is moving to the west-southwest, pardon me, and that means the center is approaching incrementally closer to Abaco tonight into tomorrow. We expect the center to move almost directly over Treasure Key or slightly north of Treasure Key around midday or shortly thereafter tomorrow. And then it should move just around the north coast of our Grand Bahama. Hopefully that will maintain the track. Any more southward track of that would put more of the center of Grand Bahama into play as it makes that westward track toward Florida.
Well, Ricardo, NEMA officials have been busy all day in preparation for Tropical Storm, and tonight, Raven Davis has the latest on their ongoing efforts. We're going to go to that report, but we're going to keep Siobhan in studio to get the latest update on the storm, as well as check in with our reporters in Abaco, so be sure to stay on tune for that. But let's go to Raven Davis for this report.
With the NEMA entity, if you go back to yesterday with the press conferences that were held down in New Providence, was a sheer indication that nothing is being taken to chance.
Right.
And I think it was very, very essential that the message was presented early enough so the folks do understand that this is not a game. You need to get out of those domes, get out of those trailers. You need to prepare, especially in Abaco, East Grand Bahama. You need to come down into the mainland so that there is no issues. A lot of the folks have listened.
Yeah.
And I think that's been one of the key factors this year. Dorian opened a lot of eyes that you do not take these things lightly. And I think this has been expressed through the NEMA effort to make sure that the entire Bahama Islands understand the significance of this season and why you have to be prepared at all times. And even though here we are in November, this is a late storm, it's a rarity, okay, but we're not out of the woods yet because you have storms that have come beyond November.
Yes.
And so, and again, we were talking about climate change and all the various other aspects. This is the result of climate change. And so now with the Prime Minister that's now presenting these packages, he's now got a platform to where he can now say, listen, you see what we're going through here in November?
Yeah.
All right, it's a selling point, and I think that works well.
And we talk about evacuations, especially in East Grand Bahama. At this point, especially after Dorian, I don't think that it should even be a conversation anymore whether or not persons should evacuate or remain in their homes, especially considering what happened after Hurricane Dorian. And that was good news today to hear from the councillors in East Grand Bahama who mentioned that they didn't take it to chance. A lot of persons did evacuate, and a lot of the shelters are filling up.
One of the key points I think was discussed a couple of years ago was to put something on the books, something for the law,
The
to
mandatory.
where they can, listen, either you leave or we're going to help you leave.
Yeah.
Okay? And so you get people out of there because you cannot put civilians and also emergency persons in jeopardy because of your stubbornness not to want to move. And I think that's one of the key points for the entire country, that they need to understand that now, and it's important that they realize that when they say go, you get out.
Siobhan, what kind of flooding, you mentioned flooding earlier, what kind of flooding are we to expect, especially not just on Grand Bahama, but for the eastern part of Grand Bahama?
With regard to East Grand Bahama, because it's somewhat in a sheltered area, I do not anticipate significant flooding. Well, in terms of rainfall over East Grand Bahama, some of the inlets that come in between Sweetings Key and some of the Grand Key and Deepwater Key, and we have some channels coming in as we go toward Pelican Point and those can be inundated with storm surge as you have a continuous north and north-northeast push toward the coast as the storm is coming toward the west-southwest. So similarly for the north coast of Freeport and toward West End and those areas, I do anticipate storm surge flooding, particularly along the north coast, possibly like the airport area, those areas that are flat. The canals coming through because the water is continually pushing toward the coast and there's no way for it to go back until either the direction change or the speed is reduced. Then we can anticipate possible overtopping of some of the canals. However, I do not anticipate significant flooding in terms of residential areas around the canal, but the water can overtop as it's pushed through into the canal because, like I said, it's going to be piling and no way to back up to.
We had the opportunity to just make our final preparations today, and a lot of cars were still on the streets. Unfortunately, we did see a few accidents earlier today as well. Is this a time that persons should be roaming the streets?
No, everyone should be in their homes. And they should have made all the final preparation. They should be sitting down right now in the front of the TV watching us speak about Nicole and following the storm, keeping track of it, and contacting family members to make sure they are also locked in and ready to ride out Nicole as she goes, hopefully very quickly by our islands.
Go ahead.
There's been a lot of talk about this king tide. Okay, is that a greater factor for us this year?
Yes, because we had a full moon today, as a matter of fact.
A pretty moon.
Yes. So, so definitely we're going to have higher than normal tides for today and tomorrow. We are actually in a high tide now around Grand Bahama and Abaco. And tomorrow morning at around about 8 o'clock in the morning, we should have another high tide, and then the next one will be at about 8, shortly after 8 tomorrow evening as well. So with that king tide and the northerly push and battering very large waves along with ocean swells, rainfall, that can spell some coastal flooding for certain. And in areas, I want to just say also, because we've been concentrating on the north coast and for Grand Bahama in particular, for the north, the east coast of Abaco, particularly over North Abaco, Little Abaco and those areas, we do anticipate coastal flooding. As a matter of fact, I spoke to North Abaco Disaster Committee just today, and there was already overtopping of water on some of the areas in Green Turtle Key. So as those winds push from the northeast, coming from the sea toward the land, we do anticipate coastal flooding, and of course that will be exacerbated with the king tide and the high tide cycle. However, also as the storm moves more west of our area tomorrow afternoon, the winds will come in an opposite direction, so we'll have a south coast push. However, those winds should not be as strong, but we can have about 1 to 2 foot surge on the south coast as the storm goes to our west.
And that's deep water on the south side, and so it's a bit different compared to the north side, which is basically a little shallower.
Right, but the good thing about that is, generally with deep water, the drop-off is so steep that the rise in water is very incremental compared to a shallow coast, which is the north side, and the water pushing, and it has to lift for such a long way off. The bathymetry is very, very shallow on the north side, so that will tend to present a higher storm surge compared to the south side.
Awesome. Also, we want to hear from you if you have any pictures or videos that you would like to share of the impact of Hurricane Nicole. You can WhatsApp it to our number 727-0842, and you can also call in at 352-9774. Once again, if you have any photos, that's for those residents in Abaco and Bimini and also here in Grand Bahama, or if you want to send a message out to anybody, you can WhatsApp it to 727-0842, and you can also call in to our show at 352-9774. We will most certainly give you credit for all of your pictures and videos. But Siobhan, as you mentioned, nobody should be on the streets at this particular time. Everybody should be hunkered down and waiting and riding out this storm as we wait for it to pass.
Yes, because like I said, all through the night, we anticipate continuous rain bands coming in. And I want to say also within those rain bands, there can be tornadic activity. One of the things that will happen is as the rain bands come ashore, the winds will tend to increase in the gusts within those bands, and that will tend to spawn tornadoes simply for the fact that as the wind make contact with the shoreline, it's going to drag and slow down and can create like just weak tornado. So that's another reason we ought to be off the street. Also, when we were driving coming in, you know, there were some coconut limbs and stuff on the ground. And so you never know what's going to fall when you come by. So you really ought to be hunkered down and just riding it out. This came and it will pass, I can assure you.
And a lot of persons were saying earlier, Ricardo, that this seemed to be a pop-up storm. They didn't feel as though they had much time to prepare. The weekend came, and then Monday, bam, we were under hurricane watch. Is that a norm or something that you've seen in the past, or persons just don't heed to the warnings?
We've had 1 or 2 they call freak events that has happened years ago, but nothing like this in terms of what's going on. But keep in mind, though, and Siobhan will tell you, this has been a very active season. And so because it's so active and being placed on warning that from June to November, you do not let your guard down. Okay, we saw what happened with Ian and whatever. These things just happen to come up, and there's another one just a couple of days ago that went down the Yucatan Peninsula. Now there's one up there near Bermuda, and then this one here, and who knows whatever else is going to happen down the road. But the bottom line was, yes, we may have been caught off guard, but at least the residents here in Grand Bahama made good use of today. We found in the food stores and the gas stations and the various other places that people were. And I must give Grand Bahama an awful lot of kudos. They behaved themselves in the food store today. Okay, you know how people just carry on the road, right? But they behaved today, you know. Even though the lines were very long and it was time to get out, they behaved today. And they got what they can, and what wasn't there, wasn't there. And then, too, many of the retailers got caught off guard because this is supposed to be a trailer day. And now the ports are closed. So nothing can move from the harbor to wherever the establishments are. And so that kind of like threw some things off. But like Siobhan said, this thing is going to move very quickly. The quicker it gets out of here, we get back to normality, and then we'll make sure. But you should have had your hurricane stuff already high in the back. Okay, every time you eat a can of corned beef, you put one back. Okay, and so these are the things that we're talking about. This is a prime example of why we need to make sure that you have done your preparatory work and have everything in place. And so even with water and a whole other sidebar stuff to it, you would be okay.
We talked about this being a late season storm. Although we're not out of the hurricane season this yet. how long should residents stay prepared at this point? Should we relax our guards or let our guards down if this storm, when the storm passes us, or should we stay in readiness mode until the season is over?
Yeah, we ought to stay in readiness mode until the season is over. 2001, Michelle comes to mind. That was also a very late season storm. In all the time that I've been in meteorology, that was the first, if I can remember correctly, hurricane that impacted our islands in November in a very, very long time. And so here we have Nicole doing the same thing. I would say, though, generally for formation purpose at this late stage in the hurricane season, they will tend to form closer to home. Generally in the Caribbean Sea or in the Gulf of Mexico, or even just to the east of Bahamas, because they will tend to form on either a frontal boundary that has stalled, or in this case it was an upper level system that more or less came down to the surface and then eventually would gain tropical storm characteristics to evolve into Nicole. So it is not unusual for a storm to form so close to our islands and giving us more or less a short time to prepare. That's not really unusual, but at least in November.
Yeah, because we was waiting to see what coming off the coast of Africa, and this one ain't come nowhere near. So that just shows you that anything is possible during this time of the year.
Mm-hmm. Well, mostly, most of our tropical cyclones, hurricanes, they will come from tropical waves, but you wouldn't find tropical waves traversing at this late stage. Right. Very rare to find them. So most of our system that do form, like I said, they would either come off an old frontal boundary that sat around, or an upper level system that eventually made its way to the surface, and then eventually gain tropical characteristics, which is similar to what Nicole would have done, transitioning from subtropical to tropical. And formation, like I said, for October, November, will tend to be very close to home.
Yeah, I was waiting for that cold front, but the cold front joking.
She'll probably be here later on after this. But we talked about NEMA officials, and they have been busy all day in preparation for Tropical Storm Nicole, and representatives from the various government agencies meeting to discuss the way forward and to share periodic updates as Tropical Storm Nicole nears the northwestern Bahama Islands. Tonight, as we mentioned earlier, our Raven Davis has the latest on their ongoing efforts, and we will hear from the Minister of State, the Honorable Miles Larota, Senior Meteorologist Jeffrey Green, and the NEMA Director, Captain Stephen Russell, who note that the conditions have already begun deteriorating, and he will also give us the latest tracking of the storm. Let's check that story.
Strengthening of Tropical Storm Nicole will occur by Wednesday or Wednesday night. This according to Chief Meteorologist Jeffrey Green, as he gave the latest update on the storm during a press conference. Green says maximum winds are now 65 miles per hour with higher gusts, and Nicole is likely to become a Category 1 hurricane just to the north of Abaco and Grand Bahama.
At 4 p.m., the center of the storm was located near latitude 27.5 degrees north and longitude 73.7 degrees west. Nicole is moving to the west-southwest at 10 miles an hour. We expect this trend to continue. A more northwest trend would take place on Thursday. Storm surge is expected to raise water levels to around 4 to 6 feet above normal tides. We have high tides around New Providence to be around 7:38 tonight. For those islands north, they will be approximately an hour or so, plus or minus that.
The northern Bahama Islands now under hurricane warning, which means the islands can be impacted within 36 hours. Captain Stephen Russell noting that since yesterday, concerns have mounted regarding vulnerable areas.
Swinski, eastern Grand Bahama, west Grand Bahama, the migrant communities in Grand Bahama and Abaco, as well as persons living in RVs and domes in the Abaco and the Grand Bahama areas.
Now, some 27 shelters are reportedly available on the islands of Abaco, Grand Bahama, Bimini, and the Berry Islands. Russell says the response from residents with regard to an evacuation exercise has been positive. He is, however, making a final appeal for individuals occupying compromised living quarters to check into a shelter before it's too late.
36 of the 46 residents on Sweetens Key adhered to our warning, and they came by buses and ferries to the mainland in Grand Bahama. Actually, in Guanakee, some 25 workers who lived in, I can say, trailer homes as well on that key, they evacuated those trailers and came ashore on the mainland. Some 100 or more mobile trailers were being occupied by government employees and others in the Marsh Harbor, throughout Abaco. And from the report I got from the managing director, the executive chairman from the GRA this morning, I think up to 70% of the persons adhered to the warning, and they are now seeking alternative location.
State Minister with responsibility for the Disaster Reconstruction Authority, the Honorable Miles LaRota, advising residents to keep abreast of updates given by the relevant government agencies, especially the Met Office. LaRota urges all to take the necessary precautions to keep themselves safe until the all clear is given.
My job is really to do that final appeal for residents, especially in Abaco and Grand Bahama, to take those necessary precautionary steps. We're hearing about flooding in certain areas in the Cooperstown area, and I'm advised by Mr. Green that the tide has not won't crest for another 3 hours, and so those areas probably is going to get worse. And so we're asking, we are begging, we're pleading. We don't want to put our responders, especially those officers of the Defense Force and the police force, they will not come once that window has passed. I cannot stress that enough. These individuals have their families, and the Commissioner of Police and the Commandant of the Royal Bahamas Defense Force has made that very clear.
Now, officials say the system should be out of the Bahamas by Thursday. For the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, I'm Raven Davis.
Now, residents of Grand Bahama were out earlier today preparing for tropical storm Nicole, and the Rotary Water Depot was helping residents fill their water bottles. Our Aja Quant was out there and was able to speak with a few residents on how their preparations are going.
Scores of residents lining up here at the Rotary Water Relief Foundation in preparation for Tropical Storm Nicole, many of whom say they have just started making the necessary provisions as this storm came out of nowhere.
We've just started our preparation. I'm just out for water. Yesterday I heard about the lines and so forth. I said, I'm not going to get involved with that. I'll start tomorrow and see where I get.
I'm trying to get some water at the moment. I ain't know with the rest, but food in the house and little candles, little this, little that. We'll hope for the best.
I did most of my preparations yesterday as far as food goes and making sure that my home is secured. Today I'm just trying to get one bottle of water because that's all I need to top up and make sure that we have enough supplies at my house.
Life's ain't easy. It isn't too hard. Just the last step for me. Prep for water. What God has planned, you can't stop. But just what it is, do what you're supposed to do. But you have to have your PPEs, personal protection equipment, your water, food, get your essentials what you need.
Some residents are even comparing this storm to previous hurricanes.
I feel like this storm is very reminiscent of Hurricane Joaquin. How it just popped out of nowhere and gained strength and over a short period of time. So I'm not taking any chances.
Something like Dorian, it just come and go, and I you can't tell.
Remember, Wilma came in November, last month of the season, so here we are. We're in Grand Bahama, so we should be expecting it, and we should be prepared for it, trusting God that all goes well.
Tropical Storm Nicole is expected to make landfall here on Grand Bahama as early as Wednesday, and residents here say they are not worried and are well prepared. For the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, I'm Aja Quant.
Well, joining us live in studio now is Deputy Co-Chair of the Grand Bahama Disaster Consultative Committee, Tammy Mitchell, who I know is maybe a bit tired. I know it's been a busy day for you. We spoke about our NEMA officials and the preparations that they have made in terms of getting ready for this storm. Just give us an update as far as your position and how things are going.
Okay, well, good evening. In terms of our position, well, of course, the Emergency Operations Center here for Grand Bahama Island would have been activated at 9 a.m. this morning. And at this present time, it's currently staffed with emergency support function groups who are manning the phones and also providing updates from their various areas for emergency response. The shelters, we do have shelters that have been activated, and we do have the current numbers that I can give you at this time, if that's okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. Well, and this is reports coming in from social services, who you know would be responsible for the shelters. Currently at Christ the King, they're reporting that they have a total of 8 persons there, with 4 being males and 4 females. Maurice Moore Primary School, which is the shelter designated for East Grand Bahama, there's a total of 19 persons there. Then at First Baptist, there's a total of 2. At Bethel Deliverance in Jonestown, 8 Mile Rock, there's a total of 15. Revelation Apostolic, there's a total of 2. We also have had another evacuation process, and this isn't the first time that we've actually had to evacuate Sweetens Key, but we'll go into that process as well, which went very smoothly today. And I must commend all of the persons who was involved in that exercise. They started shortly before 8 a.m. this morning with the evacuation of Sweetens Key, where a total of 49 persons were evacuated from Sweetens Key, and 40 of them being adults and 9 of them being children. We do have a total of 14 persons that have remained on Sweetens Key, and that is fine. We know that they're there, and we will assist them and support them as best as possible. We also have persons that would have evacuated from Freetown, Gold Rock, Gambier Point, and Bevanstown. And again, I think it's playing because of the fact that Dorian would have taught us a lesson, so nobody's really taking any chances. We have a total from East Grand Bahama, 227 persons would have evacuated, with 72 remaining, and we consider that a blessing that they actually heeded the call and came inland. We also have some visitors that are still on the island, a total of 562. And this is reported from the Ministry of Tourism. Nuvolari Chudasing is actually in the EOC with us this time, providing updates. And they are scattered about 9 resorts here on the island. We have at Club Viva Fortuna, 180, at Lighthouse Point, 22, at Pelican Bay, 27, at Royal Islander, 39, at Island Seas, 104, at Old Bahama Bay, 2, at Ocean Reef Resort, 32, at Taino Beach Resort, 129, and at Flamingo Bay, there's a total of 27 visitors that are still here on the island. So, and as I said earlier, our Emergency Operations Center is active. There are persons there manning the phones, and as well there to accept all emergency calls if there's a need for any response. And we do want to commend the entire team of emergency support lead groups that are at the EOC at this time.
We want to go ahead and get the numbers for the EOC.
Yes,
okay.
The numbers at the EOC, and these lines are active as well. 351-4902, 351-4903, and 351-4904. And the Emergency Operations Center is located in the C.A. Smith building on the ground floor in the Bahamas Customs Training Room 2 and 3.
And for those persons calling, that would be in the event of any emergency, for them to call into the Emergency Operations Center?
Yes, they're calling with various questions, and the questions are ranging from, is this really happening?
Right.
We literally have persons asking that. Where is water located? Where can they go? A lot of people seem to still be in shock with some of the calls that we're getting. But the main thing is we want them to remember to just remain calm. And as long as you're taking the necessary precautions, you'll be okay.
You know, Ricardo, you sat here in 2019 and you witnessed firsthand the effects of Hurricane Dorian. Does it surprise you that persons are in shock that another storm is coming or here?
Yeah. Because the devastation that we encountered with Dorian and the loss was so great to so many people that it rekindled the memory. And a lot of people are not happy with the fact that they've just gotten themselves back up off their feet. You know, we had enough water that came all the way across this island. And so people are like, oh, is this going to happen again? And so there's some anxiety in there. And so with the EOC and people calling in, you have to be able to talk to them and let them understand that it's going to be okay, all right? I just need you to relax, stay calm, follow instructions from the various individuals that are giving you instructions accordingly, okay? And just do not be out there running around. And that's a very, very important part of it, because as you do know, this is a tropical storm with another, 7 or so miles an hour, and it becomes a Category 1 hurricane, and that could happen relatively quickly. Don't want to get you caught off guard.
Right.
See, it's fooling out there, because in coming in here, stars are out.
Light breeze.
There's no light breeze. Folks are sitting outside and having a good time. But the problem is, this thing could turn in a minute, okay? And so you don't want to have that happen. It's raining in Abaco, okay? It's stars out here. In another 4 hours, it could be worse. But people are having issues with having to deal with where they were, where they are, and don't want to go back to that again. And that's one of the key things. But Dorian has taught them a lesson.
Yeah.
Let's get ready and we be prepared.
And a lot of big numbers coming from the evacuation
Yes.
protocol or exercise
Very
today.
encouraging.
Very encouraging to see, as you mentioned.
Yes.
And obviously that is as a result of Hurricane Dorian. No one is taking that chance again to remain in those areas, especially those low-lying areas. But for the EOC and for NEMA, what are some of the things that you've learned differently? Obviously, everybody learned some lessons from Dorian, but what are some of the things that you've learned differently that you now put into practice now?
Yeah. Well, I can speak in terms of from the Disaster Consultative Committee and the fact that I've actually been in this type of work since Floyd, and Floyd was 1999. I have not been home for a hurricane since Floyd to Dorian. And what I see different is that every hurricane that hits this island has come different. We learn more steps to take. We learn more ways to assist persons, and we also learn how to really maneuver around the challenges that we sometimes face. We can have any type of challenge that would cause people to panic, but as us, the leaders in this, the main thing is we always try to present a united front. So when we're out there and we come across persons who are frazzled, who don't know what to do and how to do it, or where to even go for the help, the main thing is if we're showing them that we are actually calm and we're helping, and as simple as Ricardo said, just a calm voice on the phone, that helps. So that's normally what I do. And my phone went dead, as usual, today, with the fact that the phone calls, people usually find me around this time. And I answer every call, and I try to get them the help or get them the information. And that's another key thing. Correct and accurate information is what a lot of people are looking for.
You know what's unique here as well? We have 562 visitors on the island. You mentioned the fact earlier that this thing came up very quickly on us.
Right.
And this is what we have now. People that are here on vacation, and all of a sudden, very quickly, they're now here for this duration. And so the properties that have our visitors here are going to take care of them. And so they too now have to be encouraged and be able to explain to them that, listen, this thing is going to happen, and give them instructions as to what not to do in terms of their safety. And I think that's going to be important with the help of the EOC and the Ministry of Tourism. So it speaks well as far as the coordinated effort in order for this thing to happen, and that's what we're seeing at this point.
Absolutely.
That we're making sure we're taking care of our people. Oddly enough, earlier this year when we had the tropical storm in Florida, they tell us, well, you're all on your own. Okay, but here, we're taking care of our visitors, which sends a very good message to our visitors that we care about you, we're going to take care of you, and make sure you're safe so that once we do get all clear, we can get you back to your destinations and go back to your vacation or go back home and see what's happening over there.
Absolutely, and we certainly want to, invite folks to remain calm, not to panic during this time. So I do remember in 2019, it was my first time covering a storm of that magnitude, a storm of any magnitude. I don't need to say.
You want me to say it? That in itself was a learning experience.
It was.
To watch the coverage that we had there with the airport and the water, and even right here, where CIBC is, right downtown, there was over 3.5 to 4 feet of water, and going from there. But what it did do is it gave you the confidence, okay, to now be able to say, okay, I can manage this kind of event and be able to still hold my head and make it happen. It's a learning experience, and that's what it is from there. I didn't want to be here either.
None of us. None of us. But you mentioned just being in this building. We were in this building. Our EOC was here on the first floor.
Right.
And we literally had seconds to run up to the second floor before that water came through the door.
Right.
But we watched all of our vehicles go underwater. That was my third vehicle, by the way, that went underwater.
Wow.
But we watched all of that from the windows in ZNS building. I remember sitting right in Natalie's office and watching the water come down the main street, and we were like, that can't be. But it was.
I think that's an image I'll never get out of my head. Especially seeing Ricardo look at his car, which he's had for many years.
Yes, I remember that car.
I said, when I saw the trunk pop open, I was like, Lord, what is going on here? And the thing is, we were on air, and the water kept coming, and it kept coming. And then, the hurtful part was to see that the security issue at the Central Police Station, it was worse. They had over 8 to 9 feet of water. And so that's just the kind of situation we had. And then we had the call of the folks over there in Chesapeake. And that's Tammy area, because Tammy, when she got home, that was another story over there. And then also Hudson Estate. And then moving further east, it's just crazy because I sat here with Shashina, and I watched this storm go from 8 miles an hour to 3 miles an hour to totally standing still in the eastern region. And that water, like Siobhan said, the water keeps pushing, and it just kept pushing, and it came all the way across.
We also have some footage coming in from Abaco that we're going to put on the screen. What you're looking at now is footage from Abaco where flooding has begun. This video was sent to our ZNS number at 727-0842. And so, Rick, it looks like it has begun.
What Siobhan said is going to be the outskirts, especially in the Abacos, that's going to be seeing a lot of the rain and heavy squall. Like we had earlier today, we had 1 or 2 that came through, but they're going to be getting it on a consistent basis. And so they're getting a lot of water that's going to be coming through. And then 2, with not just the rain, and then you're going to have a lot of wind. Remember now that Abaco is basically open to the element. And so with that and having all the creeks, and in the open water areas is going to be a blueprint for flooding. And so that's where folks over there are going to have to be very, very cautious and very careful, because you don't know what's in the water, and some things can happen, and you don't want to get hurt. All right, right now you're still recovering in the Abacos, and so you need to be very careful. And that's why she said, stay inside. Okay, wait until this thing has passed over. 3 days, it won't hurt you. But be able to make sure that you're able to get outside and then be able to survey your property earlier. And that's one of the key things, like Tammy was stating, you have to prepare. Okay? There's a lot of debris out there that's on the ground, stuff that's going to be flying around. You don't know what is going to be coming your way as a missile. And so when the weather gets a little bit worse tonight and into tomorrow, a lot can happen. So do please just stay at home.
Absolutely. We are looking at some of your comments on our Facebook stream, and Barbara Wilson says, happy to see so many stand behind Abaco and Grand Bahama. She says, we're going to be okay, and prayers are going up. We see comments from the Ministry of Grand Bahama stating that we are in this together, prayers for our islands and all those in the path of this storm. And that is important to mention, we are in this together. Absolutely.
United voice.
Together it is, and that's one of the reasons why when I thought about coming in here today, we're in this thing together, because it's about taking care of our people. And if you don't take care of our people, what are you going to have? You'd have trouble.
That's so true, because that's the thing when people ask me why I stay in it so long, and I say it's for my people. I always say that. I've been saying that for 20+ years. It's for my people.
And how many years has it been now for you?
Since 1999 with Floyd, and this is now 2022. And I actually started this, and I always tell the story, when I was a reporter at Cool 96. And I covered my first hurricane, which was Floyd, and I've been in it ever since. So everything that I've learned was built around that one hurricane in 1999.
She just loves the thrill.
Yes. I still have that media bug in me.
It's a rush. And keep in mind that, Ramiko, as long as we're in this, we never lose the itch to go out there and find out what's going on. Even today, that old media thing clicked in my head, and I'm like, okay, I need to see what's going on, see see what our people are doing, see who's preparing, and going from there. And driving through the neighborhoods, folks already had prepared their shutters and done the things that they needed to do, and especially the elderly, those people who were living at home. We saw a lot of people helping and making sure that their homes are secure, and to go from there. So it was not to chance. I think, and that's what it is. And so what our people have done now is showing that, okay, we are going to help each other. We're going to get through this and get through this as a unified entity here in the Bahamas.
That's us, a resilient people.
Yes.
If there's one thing we learned about the Bahamians, is that we are resilient in the face of disaster, and we rise again. For those of you that are just tuning in, you are listening to live coverage as we continue to track Nicole. And if you would like to send us any photos or videos, we invite you to do so, to send it to our number at 727-0842. That's for those of you on Abaco and Bimini. And you can also call into our show at 352-9774. And as we mentioned, we will certainly give you credit for the photos and the videos that you are sending in. Rick, we're talking about being together in these storms. We've seen after Dorian, we go back to that, it seemed as though many persons were confused. We've never experienced something like that in our lives. I've seen persons standing in lines and waiting for ice, and what I've noticed about storms is it acts as an equilibrium. There's no one on top, there's no one on bottom, but everyone becomes one. From the doctors down to the custodians, everybody became one, and that's what these storms do.
That's what has happened through all the storms that I've covered. Prime example, Francis and Jean. Francis came through, did a job on us, and then here we go, here comes Jean. And so we're all at the same point. We're all looking to see how best we can survive and to go from there. And a lot of folks say, well, why is it that the people in Grand Bahama and Abaco and also over there in Bimini, you guys can withstand this thing? It's because we understand that we are on the outer link of the country, and so we have to work to make sure things happen. What I did like is the fact that there was no hoarding. Okay, and there was a situation where like price gouging and some other little things of that sort. I didn't see that, and I intentionally went into the little convenience stores because I was going to go crazy on them. But I went in and I went to see what's going on, and so there were even specials they were giving to people just to help and get them along the way. So we've learned now over the years that to be our brother's keeper is very, very essential. Okay, and to go from there. And the eye opener is the fact that we are a resilient people. Okay?
Yes.
And we shall always be able to move on to the next step. And so these things come and go every year. We got to work with June to November. And the funny part about it is these are just dates because anything can happen after and even before. And so we just live by the rule that we need to be prepared 24/7.
Absolutely.
And just so I could add something to that, Ramiko, we don't want people to just focus during the hurricane season either. Disasters can strike anytime, so our focus also is to prepare for any eventuality, be it out of the hurricane season or the entire year. And this is why we're trying to focus more, so even with training, to have things continuous, because that's important as well too. Sometimes people lose focus and everybody wants to have training during the hurricane season, but you have an entire year to prepare, you have an entire year to train, you have an entire year to just make sure that what you need to know and how you need to get it done is carried through. So don't wait till the hurricane season and say, oh, I want to know how to work a shelter. I told someone the other day, we literally have about over 500 plus shelter persons who have been trained in shelter management here on Grand Bahama. But over the years, we found that every time these hurricanes come, the mindset changes because the fear sets in. They don't want to come out. A lot of them do come out and want to support, but after Dorian, it's almost like we're rebuilding now. But we're going to keep going because that's the only thing we have to do. This is still our home. So,
Absolutely. I want to thank you so much for joining us here tonight. Just before you go, just give those emergency numbers once again.
Okay. The Emergency Operations Center numbers are 351-4902, 351-4903, and 351-4904. And the Emergency Operations Center is located in the C.A. Smith Building, ground floor, Bahamas Customs Training Room 2 and 3.
All right, thank you so much. And those are for you. Those are for the persons that maybe need some assistance or maybe just need someone to talk to to get some information. You can call into those numbers and persons are standing by. Well, the officer in charge of the Department of Social Services for the Northern Bahamas announcing that shelter preparations have commenced. She provided a list of shelters to be activated in Freeport, Central, and West Grand Bahama. Let's take a look at that.
Foster B. Pasadena Center, that's Christ the King. That is the Special Needs Center. That is for persons, like it said, with special needs. That is usually managed by the RAN. First Baptist Church, which is located on Columbus Drive and Nansen Avenue. Revelation Faith Apostolic International, Jobson Avenue. Calvary Temple Chapel, Hudson Avenue. Shiloh Seventh-day Adventist, Turquoise Road, Central Church of God, Coral Road, and Pioneers Way. Maurice Moore, Sandcombe Drive, and Maurice Moore Shelter is designated for those persons at the east end of Grand Bahama. New Life Worship Center, that is also on Coral Road. First Holiness Church of God, Young Husband Avenue and Shipton Drive. Bishop Michael Eldon School, East Sunrise Highway, and the Outreach Temple, OEC, Pioneers Way and Fawcett Lane. For West Grand Bahama, Bethel Deliverance Center, Jonestown, Bethany Baptist Church, Hannah Hill, Church of God of Prophecy, Seagrape, Church of God of Prophecy, Pinedale, Central Zion Baptist, Pinedale, Newmont Olivet Baptist Church, Holmes Rock.
Now, the approved shelters for the island of Bimini are Louise McDonald High School, located in Alistown, and Gateway Gymnasium, located in Baileytown. Shelters in North Abaco include Faith Walk Church of God, Amy Roberts Primary School, and Grand All-Age School Preschool Block. For Central Abaco, the shelters include Central Abaco Primary School, Friendship Tabernacle School, Guanakee Primary School, Hope Town Primary School, and Manawa Primary School. For South Abaco, the shelters include Soul Seeking Ministries Church, Morris Island All-Age School, Sandy Point Community Center, and Crossing Rocks Primary School. Now we have the lady in charge, the officer in charge of the Department of Social Services in the Northern Bahamas District, Dorothea Gomez. Dorothea, the shelters are being filled. We understand that a lot of persons have evacuated those areas, which they had been advised to, which is good news. But you had the opportunity to stop by several of those shelters. Kind of give us an update on how that's been going.
I visited the shelters in the Western District this evening at the Bethel Deliverance Center. At that time, we had 15 shelteries, but I've been informed that 2 of those have vacated the shelter. So now I have 13 shelteries at Bethel Deliverance.
Okay. And as for the other shelters in Freeport area,
during that time, too,
okay.
The other 2 shelters that I was able to visit, at that time, there were no shelteries. In Freeport at this time, in Central Grand Bahama, at this time at the Maurice Moore School, we have 23 shelteries. Those are persons from the eastern end of the island. At First Baptist, right now we have 2. At Central Church of God, I was just told that we have 8. At Christ the King, the Special Needs Center, we have 10. Revelation Faith Apostolic, there are 2. And I told you about Bethel Deliverance.
Right. Okay, and as far as the shelters are concerned, these were prepared from earlier today.
Yes.
And persons have begun
yes.
filling them up from earlier today.
Yes. As a matter of fact, persons started coming to Maurice Moore from about 9:30, 10 o'clock.
Oh, wow.
We weren't ready to receive them at that time.
Okay.
Because we had initially set the time of the shelter opening for 12 noon.
Okay. And at the shelters, what do you advise persons to bring?
We ask you to bring your medication, and we ask you to bring your food items.
Mm-hmm. And for those shelter managers, talk about some of the things you have in place for those persons who are there, and for the elderly persons who may be inside of these shelters.
Well, we are not responsible, like I said, for food stuff.
Okay.
So we just provide tea and crumpets.
Okay.
And that's mostly too really for our shelter managers. But of course, we do share if the need arises.
Okay. And for those persons who are shelter managers, we had Tammy on earlier. She mentioned that over 500 persons have been trained. What are some of the things that they've been trained in to deal with in these shelters in the event of an emergency in the shelter?
Well, they've been trained in first aid,
okay.
So they know how to do CPR and stuff like that. But like I sure Tammy would have said to you, even though we had over 500 persons trained, they don't come forward in times of crises.
Okay. We're gonna get back to that. But for now, the administrator for West Grand Bahama District, Ricardo Ferguson, assuring that the Western District is prepared for the impending storm. Ferguson telling our Raven Davis that earlier today, residents were gathering essentials like food and water, and there were no evacuations that he is aware of. He notes, however, that his main concern at this point is flooding.
The command center is open and hurricane shelters were being prepared earlier today, according to Administrator for the West Grand Bahama District, Ricardo Ferguson. Ferguson affirming that the district is in a state of readiness and awaits the passage of Tropical Storm Nicole.
All our rescue teams are prepared. Our equipment is there, boats, trucks, buses. And so the rest is really just waiting. In the event it comes, which I don't think it will, but we will be ready to go.
During yesterday's meeting, Chief Meteorologist for the Northern Bahamas, Siobhan Moxie Bonamy, revealing that in West End, the north side will be impacted and battered by seawater, causing coastal flooding. Ferguson expressing today that flooding is a major concern of his.
As you know, the area is a low-lying area, and then the drainage down is not the best. So flooding concerns are there, and then the possibility of the evacuation, if need be, persons being a bit reluctant to leave their area. So those are my two major concerns right now.
He adds that he's also been hearing talks that some individuals have resolved to stay. He says, however, officials will make a clarion call for them to leave in the event that evacuation becomes necessary.
We send out social media, TikTok, WhatsApp. We have our meetings. Chief Jimmy Smith calls meetings in the mornings, and the call is straight through. But so what I'm saying is that final call, when that is made, after that, then we look at it that the possibility it's too late to go down there, because we don't want to endanger our lives or the rescuers' lives.
Now, with just hours left until the storm is set to take aim at Grand Bahama, the administrator expressing hope that all residents are adequately prepared.
But I'm praying to God that those of us who have been through Dorian and all the other hurricanes really take it seriously. The older folks in the communities should educate the younger ones, and let's not wait till the last minute, because it may just be too late then.
For the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, I'm Raven Davis.
I just want to make a quick correction. The number for those of you that want to call in is 351-9774. I mentioned that it was 352 earlier, but for those of you that want to call into the show, the number is 351-9774, and we have people standing by ready to listen to you. Joining us live now is Filcher Grant Adderley, Chief Operating Officer at the Grand Bahama Utility Company, to share their preparations for Tropical Nicole. And I know that you've been busy, as you are always, especially during this time, but give us an update on how things have been going and your preparation plans for the utility company and those things that fall under your portfolio.
No problem. So as soon as we heard that there was a storm approaching, we enacted our storm response plan. GBUC and a group of companies has a storm committee with the leads to deal with all aspects of a consolidated group response to storms. GBUC does things like we check our inventory levels, we do load testing on our generators, we check the status of our wells, we do vegetation maintenance. It's very important that we kind of trim away the threats to the power supply going into a storm so we can minimize downtime on our wells. We ensure that things like the trucks are fueled up. We have our teams stationed in strategic places around the island to be able to respond to our plants. We have teams riding out the reverse osmosis system, and we have teams stationed at our 4 plants around the island to ensure that if anything happens, we can respond very quickly. Our goal is to ensure that we can continue to produce water for as long as we safely can, no matter what the challenge is.
You mentioned the key word, produce water.
Yes.
Many persons want to know that their water will not shut off during this storm. And so kind of assure persons who are listening to you right now that may have that concern.
So we've taken the necessary steps to ensure we have ensured that we have full tank water levels. So for instance, in case that we lose power, in the event that that happens, we have our gen sets that will run so we can continue pushing water throughout the city. Again, like I said, we have somebody stationed at the reverse osmosis system because it's kind of sensitive to electricity. So if anything happens, they'll be able to respond so we can keep producing water. And again, we have our team stationed at different places around the island to be able to go to our plants in the event that something happens so we can continue to produce water as long as we safely can. Now, we do have a tiered response to storms, but Cat 1 and below, our plan is never to have a controlled shutdown. We will continue to produce water. We know how important water is. Dorian has shown us how important water is to ensure that people are sanitizing, hygiene, to drink. So we feel that the weight of that burden of ensuring that we do what we do. And again, I want to say thank you to my teams because they leave the comfort of their homes, the safety of their families to be able to do this service. This is not just a job for us. It can't be, because this is something that my team holds very close to their heart. This impacts us, the people that we love, our families, our friends. We take our service very seriously. So one of the things that we take pride in is to be able to come at these events and say, you know what, no matter what happened, we kept that water flowing.
You learned from Dorian.
Dorian was a tough lesson for so many of us.
You learned from Dorian,
Yeah,
and I'm
the
glad
whole
to hear
island
what
learned
you
from
said
Dorian.
just now,
Yeah.
because with Dorian, you got caught, well, you got blindsided in some ways, because right now you had people that were all over the place, had to get them back in and all that, and then also with the flooding that we had and all that, but now you got everything in place. And I saw the guys today powering up generators and doing everything else and making sure that we're going to be able to get that portable water, which is essential right now, especially for our hygiene process, if anything happens later on. So you've learned a lot.
But to touch on Dorian, I don't think anybody was prepared for a Dorian. Up until then, I remember, Matthew, we thought that was the worst that we've ever seen. And I recall when I was in a different space, watching Dorian, I was on the phone with you, Ricardo, and Shashina, and we were watching what happened to Abaco. And it was a very somber feeling for us in Grand Bahama, watching that devastation and understanding that it was heading to us next. And Dorian flooded in areas that historically have never flooded before. And, we had our inventory in places that up until Dorian was safe for us to store our equipment. And Dorian came, and like I said, it brought flood and water places that we've never seen before. So we did learn a lot of lessons, as everybody did. And that didn't just happen to the utility, that happened to the people of the utility. We had people who lost their homes. We had people who had to be rescued but still showed up to work when the winds went down to 30 miles per hour, because we understand what needed to happen. And there's something for utilities, and I say hats off to GBPC, GBUC, because no matter what happens to us as people, there's a sense of pride and understanding that what we do helps to bring normalcy back to the island. I think everybody has a sense of pride in that job.
Right. And I think also what happens at this time of the year is that and I saw from some of the faces of the employees I saw moving around today, they were all business.
Yes.
Okay, they were all business today. I was like, oh man, y'all could smile, you know. But they're running from place to place.
We're focused.
You know, because they're focused on understanding exactly what has happened. And there is a commitment to this Grand Bahama community to ensure that as we go through this process, that they're going to be able to get the services that your company provides. And so there will be no reason to go messing around with the water company. Leave them alone.
Absolutely.
They got it right.
You know, listen, you know, in my Bahamian vernacular, you know, my people ain't easy. Grand Bahamian people, we're not easy, but you know what? I get it. I understand it. And we'll take it on the chin. We have broad shoulders, but we get it. People deserve a level of service. Yeah. They have expectations, and we will continue to try to rise to meet that.
Okay, it's fantastic.
We know also that, well, salt inundation was a concern after Dorian, and that GBUC underwent a massive upgrade after that to ensure that not just for this storm, but for future events, that you could withstand and provide that service like you were talking about. Talk about that upgrade, not just, you know, to provide that service for this storm, but future storms.
So one of the lessons, like I said, Dorian taught us, is that we flooded in places that we've never seen before, but we use that to help guide us as to not just building back where we can build back better and more resilient. So we worked with several NGOs, local experts, our local team. We did the hydrological studies, the surveying, the GIS, to find the areas that had not been inundated, to find new, fresh supplies of water. So when we went and we introduced new wells into the system to be able to take the island back to potability, we put those wells in places that were on higher ground, that Dorian hadn't touched, that gives us a level of comfort to mitigate what we saw in Dorian. And obviously, we have to talk about the $5 million reverse osmosis system that we invested in, that was able to help us, give us that ability to take that water from W6, which is a well field that was, for all intents and purposes, our workhorse, and then make that water potable for the city. That's a mobile solution. So that's very important to what we're talking about, that we can safeguard that investment so we can protect it in case of a threat, so we can have it ready after that. So that's the comfort that we know, that we can mitigate what happened in Dorian. That was a tough lesson for everyone, and we learned that. And we changed it. It changed the way we looked at preparing for storms, how we think about storms, and then how we build back from storms. Yeah.
And Ricardo, we talked about that earlier. The lessons that we've learned from Dorian, and not just from residents, but now you hear from companies, the things that they have learned. And being in the hurricane belt and seeing that this is something that we're going to experience possibly every hurricane season, it's important that we be prepared to the highest extent, of whichever that may be. And so companies are taking all the necessary precautions, they're learning, and it seems as though we're on the right track.
We're on the right track, and what has been unique is that yes, the water company has a commitment to the local consumers, but they also have industrial clients that they have to deal with as well. And so being up to speed and having to ensure that they're taken care of, because even though we have a hurricane that is coming this way by, well, I should say tropical storm to hurricane, you have these entities that are still operating and still doing some things tonight because they have to make deadlines or whatever the case may be, but making sure that you have the necessary supplies and making sure that things are in place. And I don't want to hear these people making noise. Boy, they make noise the last time.
It was a frustrating thing for people, and people were dealing with their own traumas. And so we understood why people reacted that way. And again, like I said, you have broad shoulders. You understand. Now, of course, we're humans, and you know, there's a pride and there's a heart that goes into everything that we do. So, you know, some people took it in here because, you know, you're coming out after you've lost everything. You're coming out in the middle of COVID. And, you know, sometimes our customers are not, you know, as understanding, but we get it. Like, people were suffering, people were hurting, and we had a responsibility, and what we were bringing was something that could help them get back to a sense of normalcy, so we understood why. And you know, it was a rough, long journey for all of us, but we never left, and we stayed there, and we will always be here. This is our home. We're not leaving.
I tell you, and you've done a very, very good job in doing so. And also reassure the audience, please tell these people your water is okay.
The water is potable by WHO guidelines. I drink the water myself, I assure you. It is really good quality. We're one of the few islands and countries in the world that can still boast about quality groundwater. Yes, we do have reverse osmosis into our mix, but we still have good quality groundwater. That's something that we're very proud of, that we protect. That's why we make the decisions and the way we operate to ensure that other generations of Grand Bahamians can say the exact same thing. We take that very seriously.
testing of wells and making sure things are in order.
We test daily, monthly, and quarterly, locally by our own teams, and we get it sent off to be validated by international experts that water is good. I assure you. It's potable and it's good.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the show today. Of course, as she mentioned, the water is good and there is no controlled shutdown.
There's no controlled shutdown.
Okay, so thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
We're going to take a break now, but we want to thank all of you that are watching and tuning into our live broadcast as we continue to track Nicole, and we invite you to stay tuned, and when we come back we have more guests and more updates. The next update on this weather system will be, I believe it should have been at 9 o'clock, so we're going to get another update, and so we invite you to stay tuned for that when we come back.
It is never easy to witness nature's wrath. One single named path of destruction over the course of a few hours, sometimes minutes, sometimes seconds, can change your life forever. There's nothing you can do to prevent a hurricane from being destructive by nature, but there is something you can do to protect your assets and ensure safety for not only yourself, but also the ones you love. When disaster strikes, be prepared. J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents and Brokers, giving you peace of mind.
We just got the new fiber internet speed bump. Now my internet so fast I can watch 2 4K movies, play video games, and browse with my computer at the same time.
Yeah, my internet so fast I could download a whole season of shows before my noodles run cooking.
Mine so fast when I go to church online, service actually over early.
Mine so fast when I'm working from home, 5 o'clock, come before 3.
Sound like you got this BTC fiber internet speed bump like me.
But it's so fast, I had to have it.
Current fiber internet bundle customers now have as much as 3 times the speed. Totally free. Link up with BTC.
Are you a contractor or new homeowner? Maybe you need a few pieces of lumber for your DIY projects. Welcome to Capital Lumber, the newest building materials company in the Bahamas. Located on Parkgate Road, Nassau, helping you to maximize your savings on lumber, cement, shingles, tools, and much more. Your one-stop shop for all your building essentials. With free delivery to the mail booth, visit us today. Capital Lumber, build strong.
Car insurance, home insurance, marine insurance, this insurance, that insurance. The truth is, you may not like it very much, but you need insurance, and it has to work for you. That's why Summit insurance policies are designed with you and your life in mind, fitting your lifestyle and needs perfectly. So you can rest comfortably knowing that your car, home, boat, and business are well taken care of. Contact our agents at Insurance Management today. Summit Insurance. We peak above all others.
Welcome to the all-new CBS Pro Store. We'll be introducing various products such as plywood, sheetrock, metal stud, and a whole array of bulk construction products. So you can expect the same high level of service that you have been receiving at CBS Bahamas. We originally opened the store in 1980 as our retail location. Hearing from our customers that they wanted us to cater more to contractors, we decided to open the CBS Pro Store here at Robinson Road. So come by and visit us at CBS Pro Store on Robinson Road, where we can help you build beautiful.
Hey, it's your honorary pump attendant here to educate you on the do's and don'ts at the service station. Here's what you don't do. Do not pull up from the pump without first checking that the nozzle has been removed from your car. Because if you pop this, that's about $600,000 to $30,000 to replace. These things ain't cheap. What you want to do is make sure that the nozzle has been removed, or just wait for the universal sign, which is the double tap.
It is never easy to witness nature's wrath. One single named path of destruction over the course of a few hours, sometimes minutes, sometimes seconds, can change your life forever. There's nothing you can do to prevent a hurricane from being destructive by nature, but there is something you can do to protect your assets and ensure safety for not only yourself, but also the ones you love. When disaster strikes, be prepared. J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents and Brokers, giving you peace of mind.
We just got the new fiber internet speed bump. Now my internet so fast I can watch 2 4K movies, play video games, and browse with my computer at the same time.
Yeah, my internet so fast I could download a whole season of shows before my noodles run cooking.
Mine so fast when I go to church online, service actually over early.
Mine so fast when I'm working from home, 5 o'clock, come before 3.
Sound like you got this BTC fiber internet speed bump like me.
And it's so fast, I had to have it.
Current fiber internet bundle customers now have as much as 3 times the speed. Totally free. Link up with BTC.
Are you a contractor or new homeowner? Maybe you need a few pieces of lumber for your DIY projects. Welcome to Capital Lumber, the newest building materials company in the Bahamas. Located on Parkgate Road, Nassau, helping you to maximize your savings on lumber, cement, shingles, tools, and much more. Your one-stop shop for all your building essentials. With free delivery to the mail booth, visit us today. Capital Lumber, build strong.
Car insurance, home insurance, marine insurance, this insurance, that insurance. The truth is, you may not like it very much, but you need insurance, and it has to work for you. That's why Summit insurance policies are designed with you and your life in mind, fitting your lifestyle and needs perfectly. So you can rest comfortably knowing that your car, home, boat, and business are well taken care of. Contact our agents at Insurance Management today. Summit Insurance. We peak above all others.
And welcome back to our special broadcast of Tracking Nicole. We are live on our Facebook and we are reading some of your comments. I have one here from Mr. L.T. Ellis in Bimini who says they're doing great. They're experiencing a little wind and no rain and they're watching the news, and he says thank you so much for the information. We also have a comment in from a resident of Exoma, Tarpon Bay, Luther rather, who says excellent job your team are doing on Grand Bahama and continue to be safe. So we want to thank you so much for your comments, and for those of you that want to send us photos and videos like we mentioned earlier, you can contact us at 727-0842, and you can also call into the show at 351-9774. Rick, a lot of persons are watching, a lot of persons want to stay informed as to the latest on this tropical storm.
You know, I think a lot of our residents in the country want to make sure that they are up to speed on exactly what is transacting. To my folks in Bimini, my first hurricane was Andrew. And then going through down there with them in Bimini, and so I know that they are well prepared. So that is something that we've talked about a lot of, and so they're going to be ready. Same thing with Eleuthera, they're going to be ready as well, and then seeing how the storm is moving in that awkward direction and see how it works. But it all comes down to the fact that we as Bahamians have to understand that we are in the zone. Yes. We have to deal with it. Our friends to the west of us have to deal with it as well. They're going to have to deal with their situations. We have to deal with ours, with flooding and the whole 9 yards that come along with it. But it's something we go through every year. Yeah. All right, it's something we get used to. It's like buying a new pair of shoes, and then you realize, oh, I got to go change it again. Yeah. And so you end up going on from one to the other. But you know what's been interesting is the fact that even though we did get caught off guard with this storm, there was still enough supplies on island, all right, to take care of the residents that's here. You know, we talked about food security and a whole lot of other things that was happening. And so this is where we need to now look at the next phase of food security. Because if there is an emergency of this magnitude, that we need to make sure that we have enough in island to take care of us and make sure that we're going to be okay. I think that's one of those key points that we need to look at, and that is our food security. Yes, you have your gardens or whatever, but we have to ensure that the retailers and wholesalers and everybody who's involved in this business understands that in that period from June to November, you need to make sure you can't be waiting for your one trailer to come in. Bring your trailers in, or get what is grown in Andros and the other places and bring it up here. You can't find bananas. You know what I'm saying? You can't find bananas. And so I'm trying to figure out, well, you know, what's going on. You go through the shelves and it's not there. All right, but people want those kinds of things, and you want to be able to sit back and say, like you say, stay home. But you got to have the things that you need in order to get through this period.
And you talk about food security and being able to have the supply on stock. Obviously, this time of year may be a hard time for the farmers who may experience damages to their crops and things that they've been growing throughout the year, and now having to deal with these hurricanes. And it must be a setback for them and their fields.
It is a setback to a greater extent. Many years ago, with the orange growing, the groves over there in Abaco, and see what they're doing there. And then two, right now you put Andros into a warning scenario. Okay, and right now they are in the midst of their harvest down there as well, and so the flooding and the rains and the water and all that, and so all these things are going to be coming into play in terms of how that goes. You know, my mother said to me straight and plain, she needed to go get us stuff to make soup. I said, well, you can find it and make soup. And that's the thing, when they come to these hurricanes, everybody wants to have soup.
That's correct.
You know what I'm saying?
That's correct.
So
that's
these
correct.
are just the little things that give you a wake-up call as to why we should be looking well into advance and ensuring that we have the supplies that's necessary here on the island, because as you do know, much of everything goes to New Providence and then distributed to the family islands. There has to be a better distribution system, because if this had happened down in Acklands, Crooked Island, Long Key, San Salvador, and those areas, those people may get caught off guard because they depend upon the mailboat to get stuff to them. And so there has to be a different setup to where we can make sure that our people are taken care of once these things do happen.
Absolutely. Well, as Tropical Storm Nicole makes its way to the northwest Bahamas, weather has begun deteriorating, and our Simone Davis joins us live with the current conditions on Grand Bahama. Simone?
Well, guys, the wind and the rain is definitely beginning to intensify. Since Nicole transitioned to a tropical storm earlier today, there was rain, there was gusts, and there were heavy winds. But now it seems as though the rain has been off and on in certain areas around the island. Now, if you look right behind me, it seems as though the roads are relatively calm and clear right now. But earlier today, it was definitely very busy as residents flocked to grocery stores, pharmacies, water depots, and hardware stores, all preparing for whatever is to come with Tropical Storm Nicole. Now, unfortunately, with all that action, definitely came some traffic accidents as police warned residents to remain extra vigilant and cautious if they have to go on the road, but more importantly, warning them to stay off the road before, during, and after the storm. Now, it seems as though Grand Bahamians have been taking the storm very seriously. As we drove around the island from east to west, we noticed some residents preparing their homes and businesses for Tropical Storm Nicole. Now, we will have more updates on this impending weather system throughout the remainder of this special live broadcast. But for now, for the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, I'm Simone Davis. Back to you guys in studio.
Thanks so much, Simone, and be sure to stay safe while you're out there. We are joined live now by the Grand Bahama Power Company Director of Communications, Cleopatra Russell. We saw the reporter out there just now, and seems to be some very deteriorating conditions and windy conditions. And so the big question that everyone always asks for the Grand Bahama Power Company is, will my power remain on? And I know that GBPC has some new protocols that they've put in place for some time now, but I'm going to allow you to kind of give us an update on that.
So, Ramiko, our goal through any storm is for us to generate power as long as it is safe for us to do so. We have no intentions of us turning off the power once the storm is on the island. We anticipate that our crews will retreat, and so that means that if an individual is experiencing an isolated outage, we will not dispatch crews if it's not safe for them to go out and address that outage. But we have crews that will lock down at our generation plant, and our goal is for us to generate power and actually ride the storm out. And it is our hopes, and our teams are committed to ensuring that we're able to maintain the island throughout the storm.
So in essence, that's a no.
No, it is not our goal. We will not be doing a controlled shutdown. We will not be deliberately shutting down the power to our customers. We realize that energy is vital for safety, it's vital for security, it's vital for comfort. And so we want to ensure that our customers have access to it as long as possible.
And Rick, that's certainly good news.
Well, it's very good news because my son already actually playing when the power going on. So I said, no, it's just not going to happen. And then two, it is also essential that the remains on because earlier today, many of the business houses were closing and putting shutters up, and so they have security equipment and stuff on board. And you know, this is where the police now comes in, and so those businesses have to have those security issues up, and this is where GB Power comes in.
Yeah, we realize again that power is vital to our daily living. It's vital for the safety and security of businesses. It's vital for the safety and security of homes. It's vital for the safety and security for the hospital, for the police, and for individuals to traverse, right? And so one of the things that we always plan to do is we always plan to generate power as long as it's safe to do so. We would have all been traumatized by Dorian, obviously. Following Hurricane Dorian, we would have taken a look at our protocols, and we would have made the decision that only in the event of a major storm impacting the island will we consider a controlled shutdown. What does that mean? We saw that Dorian went very rapidly from a 3 to a 4 to a 5, right. And we had individuals that were trapped at the generating facility, individuals that were trapped at our customer operations, and we had them obviously be very committed to attempting to hold the system as long as we possibly could. But when you have 100-mile-an-hour winds, it becomes very difficult and almost impossible for us to do so. So we've made a decision in our protocols that only if it's a major storm, which means it's a Category 3 or more, will we consider a controlled shutdown of our generation plant. And if we do that, we will let our customers know in advance. But for Tropical Storm Nicole, even if it turns into a Cat 1 or 2, there is no plans presently for us to turn off the power.
And GBPC is also, after Dorian, underwent a massive upgrade in terms of your utility poles and the poles that you put out on the street to withstand stronger winds. Tell us a little about that.
So we actually started this project after Hurricane Matthew. After Hurricane Matthew, we would have lost a substantial amount of poles. And one of the things that we realized is we needed to make our transmission and distribution system stronger. So we would have upgraded all of our poles to Class 1 poles, Class A poles. Every pole that we install now on the island is a Class A pole. Those poles can actually withstand up to Category 5 storms. So we would have seen after Dorian, as a result of the infrastructural upgrades of Matthew, us actually losing less poles. So Dorian became more of a flooding exercise, but even with the winds and it being a Cat 4, there was minimal pole impact where there were actual less infrastructure that we had to change out. Something that we're committed to, something that we have been doing time and time again, year after year. And it is our goal to continue those efforts to strengthen our system, to ensure that the system, as best as it can withstand any storm that we have hit the island.
And that is good news because I think that plays a role in whether or not the all clear is given for Grand Bahama once officials would have gone out and assessed the streets to make sure that there's no poles on the ground and no debris on the ground. And so that lessens the time when you don't have utility poles laying around. And we've seen that. We think we just experienced Ian, and we didn't have that situation.
And I think that goes to something that we always tell our customers. First of all, if there's a down pole, if there's a down power line, report it to us. That is something that we consider to be vital and critical for the safety of the environment, for the safety of the public. You don't want individuals traversing the road at night if they're in a state of darkness and there being a utility pole down that they're unaware of. So we also encourage our residents to ensure that if they're moving about during, before, or after the storm, they're very vigilant. And if there is a down pole or power line, please stay away from it. Give us a call at 352-8411 and we will ensure that is one of the first things that we address.
Agreed. What about the employees? I know many of them went through the devastation of having to deal with Dorian. How is the company now helping them to, one, be with their families, which is important during this time because a lot of young people, mom and dad ain't there, and this thing is here. How are you guys addressing that?
So again, our employees, a lot of them would have been impacted as a result of Dorian, and we value our employees. They are the heart of the organization. They are the individuals who are always willing to leave their families at home to come out immediately after the storm, begin restoration efforts. And so when we would have looked at the lessons learned from Dorian, we would have taken into consideration just what they felt, how they felt the restoration efforts went, how they felt things that we could have done better, and we would have taken those advice and we would have put that into our plan. And that's really where we came back with, you know, at a Cat 3, we'll go ahead and shut down, because to leave our employees there, to have them in danger, or to have their families be at home in danger and not be able to get to them, not be able to rescue them, not be able for them to feel like they're taking care of those most important to them, we realized that was critical. Our employees are committed day in and day out for ensuring that our customers have uninterrupted supply of service. And so, you know, I want to say a great thank you to all of them, because every day, every night, they come in, they come out. Even when the winds are a little high, they're willing to say, hey, we can go out and we can see what we can do. But obviously their safety and the safety of their families are our priority.
Absolutely. And then being in this line of work, for somebody to operate with a peace of mind, knowing that their family is safe, is critical.
Yeah, and we realize that. I think for all of us, especially after Matthew, especially after Dorian, you want to ensure that you make sure your homes are taken care of first. You want to make sure that your family's taken care of first, and then you want to worry about everything else, right? And so we always encourage our customers to do the same as well. We always say to our customers, know that we're always working to get the power restored as safely and as quickly as possible. What we want our customers to continue to focus on is focus on at home. Right. Make sure that your families are safe. Make sure that you have everything that you need to ride out the storm. Make sure that you know your evacuation plan in the event that you need to evacuate. Ensure that your devices are charged and able to communicate in the event of an emergency. But what we can assure you is that day and night we will have our teams ready, willing, and able to address any outages that we have as soon as it is safe for us to do so.
Fantastic. No TICO, right?
No, so we don't. Our linemen are resting up now, and we anticipate that as soon as we get the all clear, if there are any outages, we'll be able to address them. We will address outages until the winds hit about 35 miles an hour. And the reason why we don't dispatch our crews at that point is because it's really unstable for them to be up in bucket trucks 60, 70, 80, 90 feet in the air. So our crews are ready, they are willing, they're able, and we anticipate that we're going to see minimal impact. Customers might experience outages. If they do, it's going to be because of typical storm conditions. The winds are high, the debris or trees might impact the lines that's servicing their area. And so I often say to customers, no, the pole may not be down at your home, the pole may not be down in your neighborhood, but obviously the lines that are servicing your area has been impacted some way, and as soon as we can, we'll come out and we'll address it.
And so definitely ask for, in those situations, for patience.
Yes. You know, we are residents too. We all have a mother who's calling our phone or a grandmother who's trying to text our phone. And so we're well aware of the importance of getting the power restored as safely and as quickly as possible. And we just ask for patience. If you're having an outage, we ask that they stay tuned to our Facebook page. We will give regular updates as soon as they become available. We see each message. We're not ignoring them. We take very seriously our responsibility, and we're committed to making sure we do it to the best of our ability.
Fantastic. I like it. I like what's going on.
Thank you.
Okay, and I know the staff and everybody else is going to make it happen. That's why I said TICO's busy still on the west coast of Florida, so they don't need to come this way, and so we can get them to make sure we do get our power back and keep everything going. And I think this is going to be a good ride for Grand Bahama Power Company to make sure that things do fall in place, and so we will find ourselves moving very, very quickly through this process.
Yeah, so we ask that our customers keep us abreast of anything down power lines, down poles. Make sure that you reach out to us at 352-8411. You can follow us on Facebook or Instagram, and we just ask for their patience and understanding and making sure that they're staying safe.
There you
Absolutely.
go.
Thank you so much for joining us on the show here today. That is the Director of Communications at the Grand Bahama Power Company, Cleopatra Russell. Now, we understand that over 200 residents are expected to evacuate their homes in the East End community by the end of the day. This news comes as the passing of Tropical Storm Nicole is said to be experienced within the next 36 hours. Hurricane-force winds can be felt in Grand Bahama tomorrow morning, and residents are taking the evacuation warning seriously. Our Jolanda Thompson-Everest speaking with the East End Chief Counselor today on how the residents are preparing for Nicole.
Almost 100 persons have evacuated from the East End community. Chief Counselor for the East End Settlement, Marcus Cooper, is pleased with the amount of residents that have moved out of the area and is hopeful that persons are moving to the nearest safe spot for their protection. He expresses that they are currently going door to door, visiting the remaining residents and pleading with them to evict from their homes. Chief Counselor Cooper noting that Hurricane Dorian that made landfall on Grand Bahama on 2019 has left residents with unforgettable memories. He believes that due to the level of damage left behind by the hurricane, it is giving the residents an awakening to now take evacuation warnings more seriously.
As a result of Dorian now, every time there's a storm, people in East Grand Bahama in particular would have learned their lesson. And I think that they are using the information given to them by the Med office. They're listening to the news rather than social media for weather alert, and they're using that information to determine the best course of action for them and their family.
He explains that as of yesterday, he and the team have been ensuring that the residents are alert and aware of the warnings, predictions, and safety measures.
We were encouraging persons in the East Grand Bahama district to evacuate or find themselves inland, and so far we had some good response. I know for sure all of our disabled, our special need individuals, we would have ensured that they would have exited the district. Along with the administrator and all of the council members, we are continuing to speak with the residents just to keep them informed as to the pending weather, and again to encourage them to make the right decision for them and their families.
Shelter manager Elvita Smith is manning the Maurice Moore Primary School, which is hosting residents from East Grand Bahama and Sweetingski. She is stating that they are fully equipped and prepared to care for about 47 residents. Earlier today, she confirmed that 2 people has checked in.
Well, presently, the water pressure is good, the power is on, and the Wi-Fi is open. So they're going to be comfortable here. We're waiting the cots and stuff from NEMA, so they should be comfortable.
Cooper and Smith are hopeful that persons will return to the Maurice Moore Primary School for shelter assistance. However, they are noting that some of the East End residents have opted out to stay with relatives during the passing of Tropical Storm Nicole. For the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, I'm Jolanda Thompson-Everest.
Well, as Tropical Storm Nicole continues its trek towards the northwest Bahamas, residents on the island of Abaco are not taking any chances. Once shelters opened their doors, persons made sure they registered specifically in central Abaco. Our Sheen Stubbs joins us now live from Abaco. Sheen, what can you tell us?
Yes, for Miko, Rick, I'm here live at Friendship Tabernacle Baptist Church. Now, once shelters opened their doors earlier today, persons made sure that they were registered, especially here in Central Abaco. We also managed to make it to Central Abaco High School earlier today, where hundreds of persons had already settled in and are faring pretty well. With Tropical Storm Nicole nearing landfall here in Abaco, residents are taking full advantage of the shelters. As of 4 p.m., Central Abaco High School already housing over 150 people, most from the Haitian community known as the Village. Shelter manager Christine Lightbourne saying this is a good sign that the warnings to evacuate have been heeded.
As the weather progressed, we would have more persons coming in to register. At this time, we're taking less persons. We're holding off, trying to send some down there at Friendship Tabernacle. Happy to see that the Creole community is the Haitians, in particular with those unstructured homes. They're here in full number, and that is a good sign to know that they're not taking any weather lightly, and they're present presently here, and we are happy to have them to keep them safe during this time. We've seen an increase out of the village. That's what they call the Haitian village on SC Boodle Highway. On both sides of that street, they're here. So that's how what it is, and we're happy to have them. All we care about is people being safe, and that's all we want.
Meanwhile, persons also flocking to Friendship Tabernacle Church for safety from the impending storm. Pastor Silber Mills also expressing that he is happy to provide service to those in need.
Shelter is now in the hands of the Bahamas government. It is being managed by a team of shelter managers who are under the auspices of social services. The security is under the auspices of the police. Some people are already here in the shelter, which is a good sign. We see that Abaconians are taking this serious, but we're disturbed that the storm, we were expecting a tropical storm, but we're a little jittery now that it's going to be a minimal Category 1 hurricane. You know, this is sort of like what we were hearing with Dorian. It was going to be a Category 3, then hit us as a Category 4, and when it got just on our doorsteps, it became a monster. We will provide them with the latest update that's available, helping them understand that if you were able to survive Hurricane Dorian, if you remain calm, you could survive this. We're asking people to put up their storm shutters, don't go driving about, and stay put.
A national alert was issued for persons to evacuate their domes, RVs, and low-lying areas earlier in the day. Now all that is left for persons in these shelters to do is ride out the storm. For the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, I'm Shane Stubbs. Now earlier there was some anticipation that more people would be coming to these shelters. However, again, it is advised if you live in a low-lying area or if you live in a temporary home to evacuate and find your nearest shelter. We will continue to provide the latest updates here in Abaco. For my cameraman, Roger Russell, I'm Shane Stubbs. You guys continue to be safe.
Same to you, Shane. Thank you so much for that update. You and Roger continue to be safe over there in Abaco. Joining us now live in studio is the Family Island Administrator for Freeport District, Dale Jellin. Dale, we just heard from Abaco. What can you tell us based on your assessments?
I can tell you that here in Grand Bahama, we are adequately prepared to face any impending disaster from the tropical storm Nicole. We have already engaged in pre-mitigation strategies, preparedness, response. Also, we have already executed plans in terms of recovery phases in the event that we have some severe impact from the tropical storm system. So we would have been engaging several months ago in preparedness plans, just in the event that we do face any severe weather system. And so we're always ongoing as one of the main apparatus of the government in terms of disaster preparedness, NEMA, to ensure that Grand Bahama is adequately prepared to face any severe weather system. And so right now we have had in place the various shelters that would have been activated, the EOC that is activated. We have ensured that those shelters are equipped with the necessary resources in terms of water, in terms of having generators placed in those shelters just in the event that we do have a sustained power outage. And also we would have ensured that residents who would have evacuated to those various shelters have some degree of comfortability. We have to ensure that there are cots, there are blankets, there are other provisions and resources in there, so that they can feel at home and also feel that they're in a safe, secure environment.
And that is important, making sure that residents who check into these shelters are safe and secure. We heard from the Tommy Mitchell earlier, who gave us a large number of residents who decided to evacuate. Was that the expectancy when you were opening these shelters here in Grand Bahama?
We were expecting that because, as you know, East Grand Bahama has been designated as an evacuation zone. And places like Sweetings Key, we expect residents to evacuate Sweetings Key simply because it is not fully in hurricane preparedness mode. You don't have the necessary structures and the resources in the event that persons have to be rescued from Sweetings Key. So we wanted to have persons come to the mainland, Grand Bahama, in order to ensure that they are safe and secured. And they would have done just so. You had approximately 49 persons who would have evacuated from Sweetings Key. You had 227 persons who evacuated from East Grand Bahama proper. And you have a lot of them who are now inside the existing shelters. Maurice Moore Primary School has been designated as the main shelter for residents for East Grand Bahama. And so persons would have taken the warning, they would have heeded the warning, and they would have placed themselves into a shelter, one of the available existing shelters inside Grand Bahama.
You know, Rick, one of the things we didn't talk about, when you talk about over 200 plus persons evacuating from East Grand Bahama, that means that over 200 plus persons have moved back into East Grand Bahama following Hurricane Dorian. And that would have taken some time, because for a long time residents were living in Freeport. But for that to be over 200 persons to evacuate from that area, it means that many persons have moved back into their homes and have started to rebuild, and now you know, the state of normalcy has begun for those residents down there.
That's what it's been like since the post-Dorian era. People wanted to go home. I know of a number of individuals that were staying with family and friends here in the Freeport area, and it was becoming a very difficult scenario because they wanted to get back. They wanted to get back to their regular lives and go back to their peaceful settlements that they have of their. I, for one, love McLeanstown. Okay, and you give me Pelican Point and I'll be able to hang out there on a regular basis, but they wanted to go back. And I believe now that the shelters is only a makeshift scenario. I think that folks need to understand, because people have this phobia about shelters, okay? But if you're not safe and you don't feel comfortable, that shelter becomes a very, very important entity that you can be utilized, or a family or a friend. And depending upon the dwelling. Now, here's where Catch-22 come in. Many of the homes on this island have not been fully renovated, and they're not back. All kind of tops still on roofs and whatever the case may be. And if your dwelling is not safe, your recommendation, Brother Jellin, is to come to a shelter.
Definitely, definitely, especially for persons who are in areas that are prone to flooding and also coastal flooding. We want them to evacuate and come to a shelter. So in order to ensure your safety is not compromised, and to compromise those persons who would you call on to assist you in the event that you need to be rescued. Remember now that you have limited mobility resources and you have limited manpower. And so you want to ensure that in the event that your structure, your dwelling place is unable to sustain at least up to 35 miles per hour wind, that you relocate to one of the existing shelters. There are many available shelters. There are 16 available shelters on Grand Bahama, and they're able to accommodate, to some extent, up to 500 persons. And so we would encourage persons to evacuate. You're quite aware of your living circumstance. You know exactly the zone that you live in, whether it's a flood zone, whether your dwelling place is compromised or repairs are still ongoing. So we want you to take that sense of personal responsibility and evacuate and come to a shelter. You know, like they said, the life you save can be your very own.
I think also what's important is, I looked at the list of the shelters that you have. Many of them are within walking distance. So if you don't have a vehicle, that's no excuse. You can still get to a shelter where you can be comfortable. There's somebody there that can assist you, whatever. And then there are a lot of folks who may have situations with physical abilities and maybe not doing well at this point, is where you need to take full advantage of that situation and take advantage of that shelter that's in your neighborhood. You got the churches and the schools that are all in your neighborhood, and go from there. And even in the Western District, do not be a hero. Okay? Do not be a hero. Make sure that you do what you have to. I'm just elated that the folks out of East Grand Bahama all came down. Because after Dorian and going up there and seeing what was left and seeing where they are, and people are now coming back, a lot of my good friends are now back in their homes, whatever the case may be. I saw them down. They were like, they're not even, they haven't even
taking that chance.
They even ain't past the Casuarina Bridge, straight over. And they came down and called it a day because they didn't want to have to go through that terrifying effect, whatever. And then too, Amico, what is unique is this is a tropical storm that could change dramatically. And Mother Nature has a funny way of throwing you a curveball. And so this thing could shift to the south, it could shift to the north, and who knows what it's going to bring. And so, like you said, precaution is essential. And so we want our people to be very, very, very careful about where they are and know their surroundings at all times.
Definitely.
And can you imagine the difficulty of having to get to somebody in East Grand Bahama, particularly from Freetown straight to Sweetings Key in the event of an emergency? You're pretty much on your own at that point once the storm has already come, or as the storm is over us.
That's correct. You know, a lot of the areas in East Grand Bahama are low-lying areas.
Right.
And it's basically, as an archipelago, we're surrounded by waters on all four sides. And so in areas like Bevanstown, even going into McLeanstown, you find that during normal weather, in terms of just if you have a lot of rain, and during that particular period, that those areas tend to flood.
Right.
And so imagine with a tropical system, it would be impossible. So we would have encouraged persons today to evacuate those areas. And also we would have provided transportation for persons who wanted to go to the various shelters.
And seeing that's very, very important because going up there, you're going through the creek. Because as soon as you leave Equinox, that's lone flat land until you get up into Pelican Point. And when you leave Pelican Point and you swing around the corner, that's the creek on the two sides all the way up until you get into McLeanstown. And so you're talking about flat land. And then two, what has been detrimental is that with the advent of Dorian, we've lost much of the mangroves and lost a lot of vegetation that would have been buffered for this water. And like Siobhan said, there is going to be some water that's going to come with this thing. And so with the rain and the water will come over, it could be a little bit treacherous. And so we don't want our people, defense force or police, anybody going up there and trying to find somebody, whatever. Now, good enough is that there are some people who are on the key to leave there to watch the property. Right. And so you know that they're there, and I hope that they were taking all the precautions necessary to make sure they're safe. Same thing in McLeanstown, to make sure that they would take the necessary precautions to protect themselves and in the event of anything, and stay very close to ZNS for all the information throughout the night and into tomorrow as to exactly where the storm is and exactly what she's planning to do over the next 24 hours.
Absolutely, and as he mentioned, pay close attention to our network as we continue to provide updates. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to continue the show when we come back. But for those of you that are tuning in and would like to send us photos and videos, once again, you're encouraged to contact us at 727-0842 and also give us a call at 351-9774. As we go into our next break, we invite you to stay tuned. You're watching live coverage of Tracking Nicole from the Northern Bahamas here and our ZNS Northern Service.
Welcome to the all-new CBS Pro Store. We'll be introducing various products such as plywood, sheetrock, metal stud, and a whole array of bulk construction products. So you can expect the same high level of service that you have been receiving at CBS Bahamas. We originally opened the store in 1980 as our retail location. Hearing from our customers that they wanted us to cater more to contractors, we decided to open the CBS Pro Store here at Robinson Road. So come by and visit us at CBS Pro Store on Robinson Road, where we can help you build beautiful.
Hey, it's your honorary pump attendant here to educate you on the do's and don'ts at the service station. Here's what you don't do. Do not pull up from the pump without first checking that the nozzle has been removed from your car. Because if you pop this, that's about $600,000 to $30,000 to replace. These things ain't cheap. What you want to do is make sure that the nozzle has been removed, or just wait for the universal sign, which is the double tap.
It is never easy to witness nature's wrath. One single named path of destruction over the course of a few hours, sometimes minutes, sometimes seconds, can change your life forever. There's nothing you can do to prevent a hurricane from being destructive by nature, but there is something you can do to protect your assets and ensure safety for not only yourself, but also the ones you love. When disaster strikes, be prepared. J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents and Brokers, giving you peace of mind.
We just got the new fiber internet speed bump. Now my internet so fast I could watch 2 4K movies, play video games, and browse on my computer at the same time.
Yeah, my internet so fast I could download a whole season of shows before my noodles run cooking.
Mine so fast when I go to church online, service actually over early.
Mine so fast when I'm working from home, 5 o'clock, come before 3.
Sound like you got this BTC fiber internet speed bump like me.
But it's so fast, I had to have it.
Current fiber internet bundle customers now have as much as 3 times the speed. Totally free. Link up with BTC.
Are you a contractor or new homeowner? Maybe you need a few pieces of lumber for your DIY projects. Welcome to Capital Lumber, the newest building materials company in the Bahamas. Located on Parkgate Road, Nassau, helping you to maximize your savings on lumber, cement, shingles, tools, and much more. Your one-stop shop for all your building essentials. With free delivery to the mail booth, visit us today. Capital Lumber, build strong.
Car insurance, home insurance, marine insurance, this insurance, that insurance. The truth is, you may not like it very much, but you need insurance, and it has to work for you. That's why Summit insurance policies are designed with you and your life in mind, fitting your lifestyle and needs perfectly. So you can rest comfortably knowing that your car, home, boat, and business are well taken care of. Contact our agents at Insurance Management today. Summit Insurance. We peak above all others.
Welcome to the all-new CBS Pro Store. We'll be introducing various products such as plywood, sheetrock, metal stud, and a whole array of bulk construction products. So you can expect the same high level of service that you have been receiving at CBS Bahamas. We originally opened the store in 1980 as our retail location. Hearing from our customers that they wanted us to cater more to contractors, we decided to open the CBS Pro Store here at Robinson Road. So come by and visit us at CBS Pro Store on Robinson Road, where we can help you build beautiful.
Hey, it's your honorary pump attendant here to educate you on the do's and don'ts at the service station. Here's what you don't do. Do not pull up from the pump without first checking that the nozzle has been removed from your car. Because if you pop this, that's about $600,000 to $30,000 to replace. These things ain't cheap. What you want to do is make sure that the nozzle has been removed, or just wait for the universal sign, which is the double tap.
Car insurance, home insurance, marine insurance, this insurance, that insurance. The truth is, you may not like it very much, but you need insurance, and it has to work for you. That's why Summit insurance policies are designed with you and your life in mind, fitting your lifestyle and needs perfectly. So you can rest comfortably knowing that your car, home, boat, and business are well taken care of. Contact our agents at Insurance Management today. Summit Insurance. We peak above all others.
Welcome to the all-new CBS Pro Store. We'll be introducing various products such as plywood, sheetrock, metal stud, and a whole array of bulk construction products. So you can expect the same high level of service that you have been receiving at CBS Bahamas. We originally opened the store in 1980 as our retail location. Hearing from our customers that they wanted us to cater more to contractors, we decided to open the CBS Pro Store here at Robinson Road. So come by and visit us at CBS Pro Store on Robinson Road, where we can help you build beautiful.
Hey, it's your honorary pump attendant here to educate you on the do's and don'ts at the service station. Here's what you don't do. Do not pull up from the pump without first checking that the nozzle has been removed from your car. Because if you pop this, that's about $600,000 to $30,000 to replace. These things ain't cheap. what you want to do is make sure that the nozzle has been removed, or just wait for the universal sign, which is the double tap.
It is never easy to witness nature's wrath. One single named path of destruction over the course of a few hours, sometimes minutes, sometimes seconds, can change your life forever. There's nothing you can do to prevent a hurricane from being destructive by nature, but there is something you can do to protect your assets and ensure safety for not only yourself, but also the ones you love. When disaster strikes, be prepared. J.S. Johnson Insurance Agents and Brokers, giving you peace of mind.
We just got the new fiber internet speed bump. Now my internet so fast I can watch 2 4K movies, play video games, and browse with my computer at the same time.
Yeah, my internet so fast I could download a whole season of shows before my noodles run cooking.
Mine so fast, when I go to church online, service actually over early.
Mine so fast, when I'm working from home, 5 o'clock, come before 3.
Sound like you got this BTC fiber internet speed bump like me.
But it's so fast, I had to have it.
Current fiber internet bundle customers now have as much as 3 times the speed. Totally free. Link up with BTC.
Welcome back to our live coverage of Tracking Nicole. We are joined once again by Chief Meteorologist Siobhan Moxie Bonamy to get the latest update on the weather. A lot of persons have been asking, they want to know what's happening now. Can you kind of give us the latest update on where the storm is and what it is doing at this point?
Okay, Tropical Storm Nicole continues to turn toward the west-northwest on approaching Abaco and Grand Bahama. The latest advisory, which was just issued for 10 o'clock, puts Nicole at 27.1 degrees north, 74.8 degrees west, and that's about 155 miles to the east of Treasure Key, 145 miles east-northeast of Marsh Harbor, about 240 miles to the east of Freeport, some 255 miles east-northeast of West End, and about 290 miles east-northeast of Bimini. The maximum sustained winds have bumped up a little, so it's continuing to strengthen to about 70 miles per hour, which is only about 4 miles per hour below hurricane strength, and is moving toward the west-southwest at 10 miles per hour. So once again, the track has not shifted substantially. We do anticipate Tropical Storm Nicole to move very near or over North Abaco by around midday tomorrow or shortly thereafter, and then continue toward the east and central Grand Bahama as it tracks toward the east coast of Florida. So once again, residents in Grand Bahama, Abaco, Bimini, surrounding keys, you should be well prepared, set, locked in, watching us and keeping abreast on the latest as Nicole continues to move to the west-southwest. We do anticipate hurricane conditions, if not sustained, at least strong gusts to lower-end hurricane as Nicole comes across Abaco and East Grand Bahama, and then eventually off to the north of the city of Freeport. Most of the winds associated, the hurricane-sustained winds associated with Nicole, should it become hurricane, is off to the northeast and northwest quadrant, so it's in a more northerly, north of the center itself. So let's assume the center passes closer to Treasure Key, then points north of Treasure Key would more or less probably feel that very small core of the system as it makes that approach in that area. But again, because the winds around the field is so vast and wide, we do anticipate strong tropical storm force winds to bombard Abaco and Grand Bahama right through the night, right into most of the day tomorrow. As a matter of fact, even in for Grand Bahama and West End and Bimini, even into Thursday. Oh. So we're in for it for a while yet.
We have a question coming in from one of our viewers on social media, wanting to get an update on the flooding in the area of Hunters and Lewis Yard and Pinders Point, and what kind of flooding can they expect?
Well, for the Lewis Yard, Pinders Point area, in terms of rainfall, because there are two different types of flooding. There'll be coastal flooding as it relates to storm surge, right, and then you have rainfall flooding. We anticipate 2 to 4 inches of rain when all is said and done, and that's accumulated rain over a couple of days. So I don't anticipate that to, outside of the minor road flooding that you would have, that it shouldn't be significant. However, once the winds swing from a southerly direction and you start to get that onshore push of water on the south coast, that becomes more of an issue for the Pindas Point area. Like I said earlier in the show when we began, I'm thinking about 1 to 2 feet of storm surge, and so you'll have coastal inundation along that road in the 8 Mile Rock community, the road that goes along the south coast, and then of course the road in Pindas Point that go around the oil terminal that comes in. Chances are that water can breach that sea spray and it will accumulate as well as debris. Right. So, but then again, we should be locked in.
Yeah.
So just be locked in when we give the all clear, and the emergency responders go about and do what they have to do whenever that time comes, then we can go. I don't anticipate significant flooding, like say for homes along the south coast. For the simple fact, like I said, even though the winds will be pushing gusts to tropical storm as Nicole makes its way to the west, the deep water will mitigate somewhat the impact and the height of the storm surge coming across. So, but definitely minor coastal and road flooding on the south coast.
I also see here that persons were concerned about the king tide, and I know you talked about it earlier, but just kind of give some assurance on as a result of as it relates to the king tide.
Well, if there's a silver lining to Nicole coming across, let's go with the forecast, and it is at hurricane strength as it's approaching Grand Bahama and Abaco. High tide is in the morning around 8 o'clock. And then in the evening, again after 8 o'clock. And the approach at hurricane strength is around midday-ish. So we're going to be at lowest tide, so that helps us tremendously.
Okay. That's good news. And at this moment, you mentioned that we are 4 miles below hurricane strength at 70 miles per hour. And so residents no one should actually be on the streets at this point.
No, not at all. And remember now, the difference between that 70 and 74 is really not much. So we more or less looking at we more or less, I can't call that, but we're very, very near that. And we can almost say that, at some point, even if it's not sustained, we will definitely get some gusts to hurricane as Nicole makes our track to the west.
As it crosses Abaco and East Grand Bahama and makes its way down to the western end of the island, is there any concern down the back there in West End?
Once again, because we're going to have a good push of northeast and east wind, the water should somewhat pile on the north coast of the road in West End. Right. So there could be some flooding there. I actually took a drive into the West End area this afternoon, and the water is very near the marsh area just beyond Hannah Hill. Not Hannah Hill, what that area is called? Holmes's Rock. Beyond Holmes's Rock, past the new primary school, the high school that is being built out there. The water is very, very approaching the road because of the continuous push of the northeast flow. And that was at low tide. So I'm imagining at high tide, the water should start to breach the road a bit.
Because we're looking at the creek down there. Once you leave Deadman's Reef and going into West End, you have the creek on the north side. Right. It runs all the way down, and then you get into the outside by the chicken nest and that water in the back there. And that so-called buffer, they have there, how long that wall been there? Oh, before I was born. And with the so-called rise of the ocean, that water is going to come across the road in any event. Right. And so that's going to be a concern for residents to not be out there driving around and being very, very careful, because you're going to have those swales that will come across, and see how that works in there as this ventures down towards the Florida region, passes over here on the east side. And then again, I don't want to be chauvinist, but like women, they changed their mind. Yeah. So they may decide to go north, or they decide to come south, okay? And so anything is possible. But the best bet is to stay where you are.
She's smiling now when you say
I'm happy that you say that because women, when we make up our mind, we just do it and go. So I'm assuming that Nicole will do the same thing. But let's not be too... let's not focus too much on that actual center point of the track because storms will tend to wobble, particularly once they start to strengthen. They will tend to wobble a bit, and so, like you said, it can take a last-minute deviation. Any farther south of that track will put more of the hazards associated with Nicole in play as it comes to the south of the island. Of course, our hope and our best bet would be for it to continue to hang more in a northerly north of the island as it's making the track to the west. So,
and for Bimini and the Keys, what can they expect?
For Bimini, most of the weather would be more or less north in terms of the track, if it holds true. So Bimini should be experiencing tropical storm force winds for quite a bit as well. I do not anticipate any hurricane gusts for the island of Bimini, but sustained tropical storm force winds, they will be in it for a while from around 2 a.m., about the same time as West End tonight, and those should hold through to around midnight or so tomorrow night.
And Grand Key is sitting out there by themselves tonight.
Oh, yeah, yes.
And it's sitting way out there, and it's on that northernmost point. And with it coming across the Eleuthera area, the Abaco area, that's another thought pattern over there for Grand Key.
Yeah, Grand Key, Walker's Key, all of those in the north.
And
anything
they just had all that work done to Walker's Key and opening it back up and everything, and also a big Grand Key and everything else over there. So they have to be on their P's and Q's tonight.
Well, the thing about it is, because there have been so much swells even before Nicole started to come around, you know, moving about via boat, for instance, was, I'm sure, a bit treacherous. And now there's really nothing much that can be done because we are in the thick of it now. So we just have to hunker down and, you know, pray that everyone in Grand Key and Walker's Key and all those other coastal keys off of North Abaco and even off of Grand Bahama, if there's still anyone out there, you know, try to find the highest point and just hunker down, and sooner or later it'll pass and all will be well.
Thought about my folks over there in Grand Key, because I got to go there next week. Barracuda time.
We have something in from BTC, just a little update from them on their readiness plans. It's saying that they're giving 36 hours of free data for postpaid customers once you get the unlimited data on all plans for free. Prepaid customers get 1 gig of data for free with their postpaid plan. And that is, I guess, an incentive for their customers and so on. You know, being able to communicate during this time is important. And for those of you that are watching and also want to check on maybe our family islanders and those on Abaco and Bimini, we invite you to send us a message at 727-0842, and we will try to get those messages over to them, or for photos and videos that you want to send on our show here today, and we will definitely give you the credit for it. But Rick, we're now in the thick of it. You heard it.
And you know what? This is a unique scenario because when we had Dorian, we had challenges with the 2 networks. Okay. Now they've had opportunity to upgrade. And so, you know, Siobhan got 2 phones. Everybody got 2 phones. Okay. And so, one or the other. And so, with the so-called work that has been done to the various networks and ensuring that the information can be given to people, you could reach your loved ones or whatever. This is now another testing ground for the 2 carriers to be able to meet the demands that the public requires. Because this thing is a must. Okay, my mother got this underneath a pillow. Okay, my wife got hers underneath her shoes. Just to make sure that we have this, because you need to call and then to make sure that you can get to our people. So I'm just hoping that they have their systems in place to make sure that these particular devices continue to run and our people can reach each other throughout the islands. And you know, it's because it's going to be an interesting couple hours moving forward.
Absolutely. I keep going back to that, I don't know, maybe that's some PTSD kicking in, that 4 miles per hour below hurricane strength. It hasn't left my brain as yet, because I know at some point we're going to get that Grand Bahama is now experiencing Category 1 force winds. Siobhan, I don't want to say nothing on that as yet.
No, but the thing about it is, Grand Bahama, Abaco, surrounding keys in particular, not saying that I'm leaving Bimini out, but we don't anticipate tropical storm, hurricane force winds getting to them. So I would say we ought to be preparing for a Category 1 hurricane. I mean, I think we said that even earlier than today. We were saying that, you know, we ought to be prepared for a Category 1 hurricane. Like I said, there's really not a substantial difference between a high-end tropical storm and a low-end Category 1 hurricane. So all I wish to just say to the residents in the extreme northern islands that, listen, the time for basically planning and preparation is over. We should be in place. We should be ready to be bombarded and just get an onslaught of continuous tropical storm force winds. We're going to have those battering waves. I want to speak to mariners. You should be locked in port, moored, and wait for the all clear, because even after the system passes, the seas are not going to just come down. They're going to be up and very dangerously rough for a few days, even after Nicole would have made landfall in Florida once it leaves our area. So mariners, you know, just I know it's crawfish season and I know Christmas is coming, but lives, you know, are more important than anything else. So to the residents of the extreme northern islands, in a few hours or so, we're going to be in our roughest patch as Nicole more than likely intensifies to a Category 1 hurricane, but it is moving. That's the big thing I want to say. I know that we may be a bit fearful given what transpired with Dorian a few years ago, but we don't anticipate any stalling. There was a bit of a slowing down when it turned from going to the northwest to come back to the southwest, and then of course there will be a bit of a turn when it gets over Florida to make that turn back to the northeast. But that will be out of our area, and we will start to improve come on Thursday. So just hold on for the next 24 to 30 hours, and then we should be out of this.
I need you to say it again for the mariners and them fellas up there who want to go looking for lobster, to wait until it's clear. They have this saying, storm brings the lobster inland.
Yes.
And into the mangroves,
someone saying that.
Okay?
Heard someone saying that.
So they have this thing, they want to get out there first, but getting out there first may not be a good idea.
Well, you know, while I'm tempted to say, you know, I like to have my little bag sitting there with lobster. No, we definitely want to wait for this system to move out. And like I said, seas, unlike where winds come down almost, you know, soon after a storm passes, the seas doesn't come down right away. So mariners just hold tight for a couple days. And by about, I would say about Saturday going into Sunday, the sea should start to settle, and you'd be able to go and launch your boat and go and look for those crawfish, which should be very close to the coast from what I hear.
Yeah.
They tend to be close to the coast when storms come, so you'd probably be able to just stand on the rock and pick them out of the water. I don't know.
Yeah, that's the way it's been, and for a lot of the guys that have fish and go out, you know, when they say after the storm, they have this habit of going out there because they're in shallow water. They come inland, and because they get pushed up by the tides of sort, and so we just don't want them to do anything foolish and go out there and make sure that you do have the necessary equipment and everything you need when you do go back out to sea, so that in the event that something goes wrong, we could find you.
Exactly.
That's important. Make sure that it happens. Do not take this for granted, okay?
And you know, we have to be mindful that if we try to go out in these storms, someone has to come for us, and that person become, you know, their lives go in danger as well. So.
Yeah, and I've seen too much of that, where we've seen a lot of our officers from the Royal Bahamas Police Force, the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, have had to put their lives at risk to go out to go and find people. So basically, stay where you are. Do not move. Wait until this young lady give us the all clear. All right? and then we'll know exactly what's going on and go from there. And NEMA and all the other entities will again follow up and make sure we go from there. So I think that's going to work because again, what is so unique is that we have a meteorologist right here on the island that can give you the necessary information. And so with them communicating with the Met Office in New Providence and through NEMA, it's a collaborative effort, and then we can know whether or not we're okay to move around. And don't forget, we still may have a couple of things coming off the shoreline, them little gusts of winds and some other things that come in here, because we've seen post these storms, you get these little small tornadoes and water spouts that walk inland, and they become a hazard to a lot of people. So you got to be careful, even though we may be out of the clear. We're not out of the clear yet until you do give that okay for us.
Right.
All right.
And we want to, once again, before you leave, because I know you have to leave, quite a busy night for you, but when can we expect to be in the all clear once again, just to tell persons?
Well, for the all clear to be given, the islands will no longer be under sustained, let's say, tropical storm conditions, for instance. So it's a little early to say when that's going to occur because you just don't know what the storm is going to do. It can slow down. If I say the all clear is going to be given, let's say, 10 a.m. on Thursday morning, and the storm is moving at 10 miles an hour, let's say for some reason it starts to go down to 7, then that will be pushing it back.
Right.
So I am more focused on the hazards at hand and making sure that there's no life lost as the storm goes by. And perhaps tomorrow evening, if I'm sitting in the same spot again, then we can talk probably about the all clear.
Thank you so much for joining us here tonight. I'm going to let you go. I know it's a busy night for you, and so we'll check in periodically to get updates as they become available to make sure that we keep persons informed. But we're going back over to the island of Abaco. The various government agencies have been working around the clock to ensure that residents are prepared in the event that this system hits the island. The Member of Parliament for South and Central Abaco, John Pinder, told our ZNS News team earlier today that the island is in a state of preparedness.
We had a heads of departments meeting in OPM Abaco Marsh Harbor to brief each other on where each of the departments stood and to collaborate where we could to help each other better serve and the people.
Now, the island of Abaco was devastated by Hurricane Dorian, and as a result of that storm, many residents of Abaco were left without homes, and the government had to relocate them to the domes. Today, Pinder is concerned about them and wants them to seek other places for shelter.
We are firmly encouraging all of them to do so. We have had a good response that most of them are finding safe refuge elsewhere via either shelters, friends' homes, or family. There are still some residents that have not yet, to which we are going out to firmly encourage them to.
Now, Rick, we had the chief meteorologist on for the island, and it's quite a busy night for her, we know, but she is telling us that we're in the thick of it, 4 miles per hour below hurricane force winds, and encouraging residents to stay indoors. And now is not the time to be doing any sightseeing. Now is not the time to be roaming the streets. Now is the time to hunker down and pay attention to get information.
That's why we wanted to say, you know, yes, we'd like to have videos and some other stuff, but you got to remember now, you got to do it in a safe environment. All right, so don't go sticking your head outside and knowing that there's these high winds and stuff that's going on and going from there. Something else that the Member of Parliament spoke about in Abaco, again, those domes and those homes. We heard yesterday from the NEMA press conference that they need to get them out of those domes, whatever. They are only what they refer to as a substantive entity for you to be in for a short period of time. They cannot withstand winds of that sort. Even though they are anchored, they can't stay there. And so if you go back to what happened in Western Florida in regards to Ian, where it's an area for us that I go to a lot. Right. There's a lot of trailer parks, okay, and those domes and those trailers are there, and they just get thrown around. And now you're talking about the possibility of going up to some 74 miles per hour winds. That is not a pretty sight. Right. And so I applaud the folks in Abaco for telling them to get out of those things, find a suitable area, like Silbert said, to go and have as a shelter, because again, you don't want to have anybody get hurt. Prevention is very, very essential, and we don't want to have anything but a couple of branches of the royal palm come down, and that's it. We don't want to have any kind of damage or anything else, because we want to see that we get out this pretty easy.
Definitely. And also, it was a hectic day on the North Island of Bimini for the island administrator, Desiree Ferguson. But she is grateful to her entire team as they completed preparations for the impending storm. The administrator Ferguson says that she is happy that all necessary preparations have been completed.
I just came off the road a while ago, and everybody is making their final preparation. Some people are putting up shelters on their windows, and they're making their last-minute preparations. Most of the boaters, their boat is secured. They have about 3 fishing vessels out at the government dock, and they are just waiting to ride out the storm.
Administrator Ferguson says that she is happy that all necessary preparations have been completed. We also understand that she is on the line. Is that so?
We have to do our best with the manpower that we have from the Defense Force, Police Force, Customs and Immigration officers, who is on board with us, and our medical team, because there's no way to evacuate at this time.
Well, joining us on the phone now to give us this latest with the conditions and preparations in Bimini is Administrator Desiree Ferguson. Administrator, firstly, share the current conditions that residents of Bimini are experiencing at this particular moment.
Good night. We are experiencing winds about 25 to 30 miles per hour. On the eastern side of the island, it's very calm. On the western side, we have a lot of sea surf, and we just waiting, and we hunkering down for the storm. Everybody is in indoors. We have Superintendent Maycock and his team, along with P.O. Roll and his team. They're making sure that everyone is off the road, and we are waiting the storm.
Like for residents on the island of Bimini earlier today, I know you mentioned that the island is in a state of preparedness, but what is the preparation like for those residents today?
Making sure that they have enough food supplies. We receive information that the storm will be in for about 50 hours. And I was like, wow, it's really moving very slowly. But that they have food supplies and other persons who have compromised homes, that they be either at the shelter or with family members. We had one, Ms. Desiree Smith. She lives alone. Her house is compromised, but she informed us that she was going across to her sister to spend the storm. So far, we have one person in the Lewis McDonald shelter that was activated earlier today.
Okay, and I understand that, as you mentioned, one person is currently in the shelters. At this point, is the shelters accepting any more persons, or is everyone just encouraged to hunker down?
We are accepting more persons.
And just give the names of those shelters for persons in Bimini who may be listening at this moment once again.
Okay, we have the Lewis McDonald School. That's in Alistown. And we have the gymnasium at Gateway Gymnasium. And that's in Poggy Bay. And that is also open for persons to come in.
Okay. And at this point, is there any other concerns for the island at this point?
Not at this time. We have a few fishing boats came in. So, and they are in safe harbor. The only thing now is for persons to get to South Bimini from North Bimini. And I think the ferry, he had stopped already. So we don't have any ferry service heading to the north or coming to the south at this time.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we encourage you guys to, stay safe as we continue to wait on this storm to pass over.
Yes, thank you so much, Nicole.
It is.
Having one person in the shelter is plenty.
Yeah.
I've been down there. I know the situation. I know what it was like during Andrew, and they just take in each other. They go from house to house, and how the families do live together like that. And so they're going to take care of each other down there. So have no issues at all. The concern was, again, the fishing boats that was out in that area. They're now in, and many of them would be on the eastern side up in near the creek area, so they would have tied them up. And because on Radio Beach in the back there, that's deep water.
Right.
And so they may be seeing some erosion in that area as to see the road on the high point, but on the other side of it, on the eastern side where the mangroves are and one in the back there, should be no problem. I think that's going to work out well, especially the folks there in South Bimini. They too are going to be okay down there, and then the ones in North Bimini will work together as a team, so we'll be okay down in Bimini.
Absolutely. Bimini, I want to say, is my second home. I love it down there. I had the opportunity to visit quite a few times. Surrounded by water has always been a concern during this time, but good to hear that they are ready and prepared and hunkering down as this storm passes over.
And it's also the island that doesn't sleep.
Yeah.
Okay. So it doesn't sleep, and then too, again, it really is the gateway, as we've seen all throughout the summer. They have done very, very well. With the boating entities that have come into the island, and people coming over from the Florida region and going back and forth. So that has worked out very, very well for their economy. That is really spinning and doing exceptionally well. And so we just want those guys to be safe down there, and even though they are in the middle quadrant and very close to the South Florida region, we just want them to be safe and to make sure that they do the necessary things. Stay inside. Again, the security persons have the roads all a lockdown, so that's no reason to come out. And so as we get into the latter part of the night and into tomorrow, things will get to become a whole lot better. Again, folks realize that this is another episode in making sure that our families are safe.
Absolutely. We do have alert number 14 in, breaking news from on Nicole, which is likely to become a hurricane by Wednesday. The Bahamas Meteorology Department issuing alert number 14, noting that weather conditions continue to deteriorate and life-threatening conditions persist in the northwest Bahamas. And key notice right there, life-threatening conditions persist. And so definitely we want to hammer that in home. We don't want anybody outside at this particular time. 74 to 75 mile-an-hour winds can pick up a lot of debris, and anything is possible. And again, you don't know where it's coming from. Folks may determine that they want to go outside and go riding around because you may have a break in the weather as you had the bands that will be coming in. Not a very, very smart idea, especially in the middle of the night, because you don't know what's out there. But still, we need to be very careful. So tomorrow morning is going to be very, very crucial to everybody to understand that you do not need to move. All right, schools are closed, businesses are closed, everything is closed, which means that you need to stay inside. Okay, you would have made the preparations for you to have things that you do need.
As you would have heard from Cleopatra, Grand Bahama Power Company is not going to go to all shutdown, so you'll be able to do some things that you need to be. Again, you need to also look at keeping the kids comfortable, as you will find that they, as long as you have the power on, the internet's up, some things are happening with there, and then just stay abreast and stay with ZNS for the updates accordingly, as NEMA will give another update in the morning as to where we're transacting as the information keeps coming in. It's very hard at night to actually make a full assessment of what happens out there, but at daybreak, and I think now that we're on Eastern Standard Time, at daybreak, which will give us about 6 o'clock, you can begin to move around and get a pretty good idea as our security teams will be able to tell us what's going on the island and be able to be a little bit more comfortable. But the bottom line is tomorrow morning through tomorrow day is going to be a rough ride. Okay, and don't just stay where you are. If you haven't put up the shutters, don't go out there. Try to go put them up now. It's going to be trouble. Let's just keep your fingers crossed and see that things going to be working out for us, and we'll get through this.
Absolutely. We are certainly going to get through this. Earlier today, we were speaking about the trauma that Hurricane Dorian had, and at the moment we have on the line with us psychologist Dr. Pamela Mills, who knows the trauma that comes with natural disasters, and for those who are anxious during these times. Dr. Mills, what is some words of advice do you have for residents who may be feeling panicking at this time, or maybe experiencing some trauma from dealing with past storms? What advice do you have for persons at this time?
Thank you so much, Nicole, and hi, Ricardo. And I want to tell you guys you're doing a stellar job. I'm listening in, and you're doing a great job of just disseminating this information. You know, this is an old familiar place for us because we live in the hurricane zone. So we're familiar with this. We know we've been through this before, but still, every time is a new experience. So just about 10 little things I want to leave with folks so that they can do to get through this really, really trying time. One of the things is you want to do familial activities. That is like board games and card games and dominoes and things like that that will bring the family together. You have to think collectivism with this storm, with any storm, doing things together, showing love, showing kindness, being there, being a support. Reading is good for those who love to read, keeping the children very involved. Tons and tons of activities for the children so that they're involved in their minds, concentrating on whatever it is they're doing and what they have in front of them. So reading is also a very good thing to do, too. Have them to chronicle the journey. They can draw pictures of things that are happening. They can talk about things that are happening. And they can actually just chronicle the journey. The adults can also chronicle the journey. And anxiety is one that will definitely set in. The breathing activities are really, really good. So if anybody is observed as getting anxious, then have them to do deep breathing. That will calm them down. And then you can also have quotes that you can make, you know, like God will be here with us. We have to undergird everything we're doing with prayer. But he'll be here with us. He'll guide us. He'll help us. Those kinds of things are the things that will help you, those kinds of expressions. Feelings are important to talk about. I'm always very big on feelings. Let the children talk about feelings. Let the adults talk about feelings, and talk about what you're going through in the moment. That's also very good. It's helpful. And again, you can use those same quotes to talk about how God will help us. He won't leave us alone. You know, he'll see us through. Listening to inspirational music, or even music that is very inspirational, or it can also be instrumental. You know, you can listen to those kinds of things, and they're soothing. They will calm you down. And then you can do sing-alongs with those kinds of things as well. The main thing is to watch the triggers. So as the wind is blowing, as you hear the noises outside, then some people may have triggers. And triggers will come from previous storms. We've been through many storms. Triggers will come. Dorian was really bad for us. And if that happens, then again, do the deep breathing. Talk about how you get through this. Hold hands. Hug one another. Comfort one another. Keep everybody in sight, and also keep concentrating on what's in front of you, the games and things like that. But the talking is really, really good. You want to also laugh and joke. Those are things that can help you get through these difficult times. And then talk about the strategies that you used in the past that work. Because this is the time now to reflect on how those strategies work, how you can implement them now to help you get through the current situation. Check in on one another. Nobody does anything alone. They're doing everything you have to do together. That way, everybody is accountable and everybody is accounted for. And also take turns in groups with watching what's going on and keeping guard. In other words, everybody shouldn't sleep at the same time, but take turns to sleep and rest and just breathe, talk about it, and just make the best of the situation. But the key thing is going to be getting through the night because you cannot assess what's going on. And because our experience with Dorian is just still so recent, only 3 years ago, because that experience is still so recent, people are going to have triggers and people are going to have trauma. So it's good to just keep people talking and keep everything done in groups. Those are some tips I wanted to leave with everybody.
Well, thank you so much for those words of advice, Dr. Pamela Mills. Very encouraging to hear, especially the affirmations, board games, spending time with your family. And during this time, as Ricardo mentioned earlier, stores are closed, businesses are closed, there's nowhere to go, and so you now have time to spend with your family. How important is that during these times to be with your family members and for those you love?
Well, this is also important because I know, like she stated, those same 10 facts is what's important to hold everybody together.
Dr. Mills, as you were going to say?
Yes, I was going to say, and having just come out of the pandemic where the world was redefined, we spent tons of time with families, so we should be familiar with what to do. But sometimes when you're in closed spaces, things can happen because people have different feelings and expressions and thoughts about what's going on. But it's good if you can just commission everybody to stay on one accord. We're just going to have a pleasant time. We're going to make the best experience out of this as we can. But this is an opportunity to talk about family history, to talk about some of the fun times we used to have in the past. Because as you're doing this, the time is ticking away, and that's what you want. You want the time to tick away so that when you come out and you stop and you realize, oh boy, a whole day is gone. So we've gotten through this. And then it reinforces that you are able to use whatever strategies you need to get through. So it's really important to cultivate that family time and to spend that time just being there for one another.
Absolutely. But I want to thank you so much for joining us here tonight. I know you may have your family to attend to as well. So I want to thank you so much for joining us on the show tonight.
Thanks, Remiko. Thanks, Ricardo. And I just want to send my love out to all the islands, especially Bimini.
Thank you so much. Now, as we continue to ride out this storm tonight, we want to remind you of the emergency operation numbers for the island of Grand Bahama. They are 351-4902, 351-4903, 351-4904. And for the island of Abaco, you can call 827-3093. And Bimini, you can dial 456-2644 or 472-8035. Rick, getting back to the times of the board games, I remember as a kid, those were the things I look forward to during these hurricanes, spending time with family and playing these board games.
What is so unique is board games are hard to come by now.
Yeah.
Okay. Now they tell you go plug in the
tablet.
and call it a day. But like she said about talking, whatever. And too, when she was talking about it right off the cuff, I'm like, okay, we just come through a difficult time of the pandemic, and where we were locked down. I mean, literally locked down for weeks. Yeah. And so we've learned here in Grand Bahama how to manage that particular part of our life. But for a lot of people who would have been, who had anxiety and been devastated by the hurricanes of the past, it brings them into a depressed state. And so trying to get them out of it. And again, it comes to conversation and talking and making some things happen and having fun. And you can create games and do other things that's necessary, especially when you have young children. Yeah. Okay, that's very, very important. Now the teens, they ain't checking for you anyhow, because they got their own thing going on because they're now communicating with their friends via phones and all the other kind of stuff. But it's the little ones that is going to be more so vulnerable, because they're going to be, well, I can't go out to play, I can't do this, I can't do that, and so that becomes an issue. But for the most part, it's just a matter of just taking it one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, and we'll be okay.
Absolutely, and getting a message from the Chief Welfare Officer at the moment. Another emergency number for the island of Abaco is 577-6132. Once again, that's 577-6132. Now to gas stations around the island. They are expected, they closed this evening at 6 o'clock as we are now under hurricane watch, and we'll begin to experience Category 1 force winds and maybe sometime later on this night, according to the chief meteorologist. But a representative from the Freeport Oil Company Limited is urging motorists to fill up their tanks ahead of this time, which has already passed. But our Simone Davis spoke to him earlier today, and we're going to go to that report.
Peter Adderley, public relations consultant at Focal, has confirmed that as of 6 p.m. this evening, several gas stations around the island will be closed due to the impending tropical storm. Nicole is expected to become a hurricane before making landfall in the Bahamas.
No doubt fuel is an essential, particularly during this time. All of the stations that will be Hawksbill, 8 Mile Rock Boulevard, Queens Highway, and East Mall, they will close at 6 today and likely to reopen on Thursday when we get the all clear.
While we were speaking with Adderley, gas stations were preparing for storm by erecting shutters. He claims that they will remain closed until the storm passes and an official all clear is issued. Adderley advises residents to plan ahead of time to avoid crowding at the pumps.
But we're asking motorists and the general public not to panic. There is sufficient supply for everyone, and everybody will be served. Obviously, the 6 o'clock close time relates to the employees here at Focal as well, who've committed to work longer than they needed to because they too have families and have to make certain preparations. But Focal just remains committed to the community and wants to do what's best for the people of Grand Bahama.
He also gives this safety advice to motorists during this time.
The earlier you get to the stations, the better, obviously, and do not be on the streets unnecessarily. If you have a need to be on the streets, yes, but hurricane is not a time for sightseeing. We've had motorists in the past who've injured themselves or other persons, and we really want persons to protect our lives and property.
For the Bahamas Tonight, the Northern Edition, I'm Simone Davis.
Joining us live now is President of Creative Works, Peter Adderley. Peter, you were here with us during the Hurricane Dorian coverage, and here we are now once again. I don't know if it's a welcome or I don't know, but welcome to the show.
Good to be here. The forecast sounds a bit more comforting than the forecast we got for Dorian. It's great to be here. I worked the first hurricane coverage in '79. That was David, and that was just at a little radio station in the Kipling building. It's amazing what coverage has come to now. A very talented team here at ZNS doing an excellent job keeping people informed. Our meteorologists have improved with the technology, and so it's far more comforting tonight than years ago, and far more comforting tonight than the prediction and the forecast we got for Dorian.
Well, that's because of technology.
Yep.
You ain't had to worry about if your ankles swell up, and then you got to give an account for it. But things have really changed in the dramatic form. Here we are with a surprise storm right now. Here it is in the first week of November. Just popped up. We got 500 odd visitors that's stuck here. That's got to experience a hurricane with us here, and so things are moving in a progressive manner. The good thing is this thing is moving quickly.
That's a good thing. The only thing I think about in November is Mary Star Fair. I mean, I never thought about having a hurricane this late. And I see people, it's been a two-way sort of psychological reaction. Those who feel the devastation of Dorian have been overly cautious. Others nowadays, they will tell you, I mean, if it ain't 4 or 5, they ain't worried about nothing because Grand Bahama can take it. I mean, so you get that. But I'm just hoping that everybody would adopt a consistent mindset of being overly cautious with these things. They are an act of nature, and they can switch and turn at any moment. And so I'm hoping that people do not find tonight to have hurricane parties and not address what they need to address at home, and stay off the streets, and let's ride this out in the most safe, in the most safest way possible.
And that's the thing that's very, very important, that people understand that you need to make sure that that happens. And you know, what is interesting enough, I watched the story with the gas stations, and all of the PSAs are saying, fill up your car, all right? And so here it is, we got caught off guard with a 2-day window. Right. People are, they may not fill it up, but they're putting that $30, $40 in it, okay, to get from point A to point B, you know, and so that you need.
I think it's, Focal wants to stress the point, there is no need to panic, there's no shortage of supply. Okay. No need to panic. There's sufficient service stations throughout the island for you to make the adjustment where you want to go. 8 Mile Rock, Queens Highway, Boulevard Service Station, Queens Highway, East Mall, all the stations be open once they get the all clear, which is likely Thursday or Friday. Really, there should be no need for anyone, unless you're providing an essential service, to be on the streets tonight or tomorrow until you get the all clear. But you will not get fuel from the pumps tomorrow, not from any of the Focal stations that I mentioned.
That's a good thing, you know, because you're right. You don't put $30 in it, so you have $30 by Friday.
Yeah, don't use it up tonight. You know, and then you know it's a really committed and excellent team at Focal. As you are aware, they have family members too, right? And so they need some time off. But they went above and beyond as they usually do. And those stations closed at 6 this evening, and they get an opportunity now to be home with their families and watch the television show. And they're looking around late Thursday, Friday for you to get back to the pump. So don't waste your gas and be on the road tonight or tomorrow. Everything that you should have done should be done at this point.
You were here 2019, you talked about it earlier, and this is, I guess, much different circumstances. It's not that severe as Hurricane Dorian, but going back, what is some of the things that you remember most about that storm?
I was privileged to share this desk with Ricardo Lightborn, someone I had admired for years. Came home with a Carifta gold medal in '76. His mom was my school teacher. And I could not forget his face when he realized that both our cars and everybody else's car in this building is gone.
He's had that car a long time.
And he kept that car. And while people make a joke about his car, I take the more serious point. Mm-hmm. He kept that car as a commitment and dedication to educate his children. He could afford, and you want me to tell you this, he could afford a brand new car. I mean, but he kept that car as a form of financial discipline to educate his children, and so it was an emotional attachment for us to see our cars just disappear in that, and then the strength of Shashina Farquharson was just, it was incredible. Yeah. She watched on video her neighbor's home being destroyed. And then minutes later, she said there was a second neighbor. So I'm thinking to myself, if both those destroyed homes are your neighbor's homes, I mean, you need to start thinking what's happening to your home. Right. But she stayed the cause and carried the broadcast and did an excellent job. Just incredible strength that was demonstrated. And I don't think behind the scenes people realize the commitment, the dedication, and the talent that is here at ZNS to be able to go hours upon hours to bring this sort of broadcast. It's comforting for people at home, it's informative, and people get a sense of what they should be doing, what they shouldn't be doing, and they don't have to depend on social media to get bits and pieces, which is normally the wrong information. And so they get a true sense when you get a talented meteorologist that was here of when it's coming, how fast it's moving, what kind of strength we should expect, which areas should be protected, and where caution should be taken. And so it was impressive then, and it's even more impressive tonight to see this type of broadcast. I think the community is blessed to have a ZNS. You can go to all of the options you want to listen to what you want throughout the year. When it really counts, it's ZNS.
Great. I'm on the shoulders of great men like Ricardo, as you mentioned, who's been in this business for years. And I consider myself a protege of him, having trained under him when I started here.
Yeah. So just incredible talent, but you know, it's a time for us to reflect on the blessings from Dorian, the lessons from Dorian, and we face Nicole, I think, with a greater sense of smartness, awareness, and I just really want people not to become complacent. Like I said, it's an act of nature, and you know, these things can go any way, and the tornadoes are frightening. Because they're the surprises in the midst of this type of weather. And so we just want people to be careful. It's pretty late now. There's really no need to be on the streets, no need to be hanging out at bars, drinking, carrying on. Just go home, spend some family time, wait to see what tomorrow brings, bunker down, and I mean, just utilize it as a time for reflection, family time, and let's really protect lives and property as we do it. And I just want to say, on behalf of the legacy that Fulco has, the late Albert Miller, Sir Franklin Wilson, now retired Anthony Robinson, Stephen Adderley, and we welcome the leadership of Dexter Adderley. These are people that really care about the development of the country. They care about the well-being of the citizenry, and they provide an essential service, fuel, and they want the public to know that they will be there, available to provide the products and services in the form of excellence. And so you won't be able to get fuel at the pumps at the Fulco stations tomorrow. We look forward to everyone bunkering down, and when we get the all clear, late Thursday or Friday, service will be there for you to fuel up and get going, and hopefully by that time you'll have a sense of normalcy.
You know what's funny when you said about the fact that, you know, you just got to be prepared? My daughter made me take that gas stove out.
Smart girl.
Make me take it out, to connect it, and make sure the burners and everything is working. So, okay, the stove is ready, right? So, okay, now you can go do your show.
Right.
You know, but it's all because of where we were and where we are today. And so we take full advantage of it. And so the little things that you have that makes this thing happen is what is essential. And understanding that what is ahead of us is going to be far more greater than it is and where we were. Like you said, we learned a lot from Dorian. We learned a lot from Matthew, okay, over the years. We learned a lot from Francis and Jane, from Wilma, okay? And so we here in Grand Bahama have had the opportunity to get bombarded with storm after storm after storm, but we're still here.
Yes.
And that's the point that Ramiko made about the fact that we are a very resilient individual. I sat there when you were talking about Shashina and how she sat there and the face that she had, realizing that I have no home to go to.
Right.
Was a very, difficult scenario, and here we are today, okay? We've overcome that, so we have to continue to be overcomers. When it comes to this situation, you go back to the storms in the southern Bahamas. They airlifted an entire population out because of these things. And so we're seeing that the Bahamian way of life may be difficult to some people, but it's our way of life.
It's our way of living.
Okay. And like I tell them,
it's an annual event.
That's it.
I mean, a hurricane season is an annual event. It's a part of what we are. You can have active seasons, and then you get your surprises, like Nicole is a surprise. And seemingly every administration gets a test. I think you go back to '92, I think the Ingram administration got Andrew in Eleuthera. The Minnis administration got Dorian, and Davis now faces the northern test of Nicole. And you just have to admire.
Christy had
Matthew. You just have to admire the way the public servants at the forefront do their jobs. These command centers are well manned. There's a strategic approach. They have contingency plans. The volunteers at the various shelters. It's just a wonderful thing to see what our public servants do in these type crises. And it's just a wonderful thing to see.
Absolutely. We have about 2 minutes left, but before we close, I want to thank you, Peter, for coming on here today and sharing the update on the gas stations. As he mentioned, you won't be able to fill up your tanks tomorrow at any Focal gas stations on the island, as they have been closed from 6 o'clock this evening. And so, you know, you'll have your gas until Friday, as you mentioned. And so that's good news for those of you who filled up or even put it at half tank. That's even better news. And for veteran broadcaster Ricardo, thank you so much for joining me here today.
No problem. It's been indeed a pleasure, man. And once asked to come on and to assist with you today, it's like, no problem at all. Because what people don't seem to realize is this is, for me, is a career. And even though I'm not in the chair, my instincts still running, because I was all over the place today. Yeah. You know, but it's still there.
You have to be committed to whatever gifts God placed on you. If you have the ability to articulate and communicate to people in these times, you should come forward. And so whenever I've been called from 79 to now, I show up, because it's an essential service.
Absolutely.
You know?
Following in the footsteps of great men. But for those of you that were tuning in with us during this 3-hour broadcast, I want to thank you so much for joining us. Those of you that watched us on our Facebook stream, and for those of you that watched us on the television network, thank you so much for joining us. We invite you to stay tuned as we will continue our live coverage tracking Nicole tonight as we send it back to network. Once again, I appreciate all of our guests that came on the show tonight to give the updates, especially Chief Meteorologist Siobhan Moxie Bonham, who came on and gave us updates on it, who let us know just before she closed that we are 4 miles per hour below hurricane category 1 force winds. And so we're waiting to get that update later on tonight. Of course, that will happen. But once again, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We're going to send it back to you at network. I'm Ramiko Knowles. I want to thank the entire staff here in the north, all of the reporters, the hardworking team in the back, the producer, Shoshana Wool-Farquharson, Natalie Martinborough, who is joining us live. Joining us, from at home, making her, deputy director, cuts and what she does best. So thank you so much. And we're going to send it back to you in Nassau. I think we do have a show tomorrow at 1:30, so we will invite you to stay tuned for that or come back again once again for that. But I'm Ramiko Knowles. Thank you so much for watching.
I don't want to be here, but
Are you a contractor or new homeowner? Maybe you need a few pieces of lumber for your DIY projects. Welcome to Capital Lumber, the newest building materials company in the Bahamas. Located on Parkgate Road, Nassau, helping you to maximize your savings on lumber, cement, shingles, tools, and much more. Your one-stop shop for all your building essentials. With free delivery to the mail booth, visit us today. Capital Lumber, build strong.
Tropical Storm Nicole now at warning stage. Abaco evacuations. Water and lights out. And Harbor Island's long-standing water woes. The Bahamas Tonight, live at 11, starts now.
ZNS News is linked up by BTC. Whether it's chatting, gaming, content creating, or working smart to get things done, link up to stay connected with BTC.
Good night, everyone. I'm Akush Lapinder, and welcome to the Bahamas Tonight, live at 11. Thanks for tuning in. Well, as expected, all eyes glued on the movements of Tropical Storm Nicole as she barrels towards the Bahamas, taking aim for the very same two islands damaged and to some degree decimated by Hurricane Dorian just 2 years prior. To clue us in on Nicole's movements, intensity, and what she's bringing along with her, we turn now to Chief Meteorologist Basil Dean. Basil?
Good evening, McKishler. Well, tropical storm warnings remain in effect for portions of the Northwest Bahamas, which includes Andros, New Providence, and Eleuthera, and we do have a hurricane warning in place for the extreme Northwest Bahamas, and that includes Grand Bahama, Abaco, and the Barriadas. Now, as of 10 o'clock this evening, the center of Nicole was located at 27.1 degrees north, longitude 74.8 degrees west. That puts Nicole now 150 miles east-northeast of Abaco, moving towards the west-northwest at about 10 miles per hour. Maximum steam winds continue to increase, is now at 70 miles per hour, closing in on that hurricane force winds intensity. But as it continues to move towards the west, we expect things to go downhill as of the next 2 hours. You will start to see an increase in those winds over the Abacos. Rain showers already starting to impact us, and they will be off and on as those feeder bands continue to move across the northwest parts of the country. The forecast track, as you can see, continuing on that west-southwest track for the next 12 to 24 hours before taking a turn towards the northwest, and that will happen sometime late on Thursday as it takes aim for the Florida Peninsula. But before that happens, we could possibly see hurricane force winds as this system gets over the west coast of Grand Bahama sometime late tomorrow night. So residents in Grand Bahama and Abaco should have completed all the necessary precautions, and we are strongly advising that you stay indoors until the all clear is given. McKishner?
So you speak of conditions worsening at some point. Give us a better idea of these hurricane winds. It seems like this tropical storm Nicole is a pretty wet one, but also packing a lot of wind behind it. Give us more of an idea of what we can expect in terms of wind power and rainfall and sea surges.
Well, let's first of all start with the islands that we expect landfall to be made. That is Abaco. The first land mass to be impacted by the system will be the northern coast of Abaco. And that will take place sometime by noon tomorrow. But remember, the tropical storm force winds extend outward some 380 miles from the center, so those tropical storm force winds should have already been starting to impact the coast of Abaco. That will continue overnight, and things will continue to go downhill as the winds continue to increase. As the center gets closer to Abaco, we will see stronger and stronger winds developing overnight. And then by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, that system should be pretty much near the east coast of Grand Bahama, and then by 6 o'clock this afternoon, tomorrow afternoon, near central Grand Bahama, and by 9 o'clock tomorrow night, the system is expected to be somewhere over western and Grand Bahama before taking aim for Abaco. So those are your timelines in terms of where the center of Nicole will be over the next 24 hours. So residents, as we already said, in Grand Bahama and Abaco, remain indoors until the all clear is given. McKishner?
One more question for you, Basil. You know, during this time of year, and especially when we have a system approaching, we hear a lot about preparation. But in preparing, we have a lot of panic stirring up. Advise residents, be it here in New Providence, throughout the Bahamas for that matter, how important it is to remain calm in the face of all these things.
Because the key to all of this is to pay attention to all of the warnings that have been issued and follow the instructions given in those. The extreme northwestern parts of the country is where we expect the greatest impact. Those of us here in the Providence, in the Eleuthera, even though we're under a tropical storm warning, we are going to be pretty much okay. There will be an increase in rain showers, and they will be sporadic. Also, in terms of wind, there will be some gusty winds in excess of tropical storm force winds. But again, we will be okay. Grand Bahama and Abaco, that is where the bulk of the activity will remain tonight through much of tomorrow. So residents in the remainder of the Northwest Bahamas, including New Providence, pretty much business as usual, but we're asking you to exercise extreme caution. Whenever the shower activity increase and the winds pick up, we're asking you to stay indoors until things subside.
Well, thanks again. That was our Chief Meteorologist, Basil Dean, who we'll hear more from later in our newscast. Meantime, though thousands of miles away from home, Prime Minister the Honorable Philip Davis is receiving briefings about the storm's development and trajectory. In fact, he says he's in frequent communication with his deputy, whom he thanked along with other officials for leading the country's preparations. Speaking directly to residents of Grand Bahama and Abaco, the Prime Minister accepts it is especially difficult to face another storm, but he's comforted by the many stories he's already heard about those going out their way to help neighbors take smart precautions. The Prime Minister adding that everyone's in his heart and prayers, and the Bahamas will get through this safely together. Well, evacuations and preparations, the watchwords coming out of Abaco tonight as anxiety builds on that island ahead of Tropical Storm Nicole's landfall. On the ground for us is our Desmond Saunders.
Pleasant good night, Makushla, and a pleasant good night, Bahamas. I'm coming to you live, reporting live from the Abaco Beach Resort, actually the pier here at the Abaco Beach Resort. Intermittent rain, heavy winds, seafall amounts in the amount of about 6 inches, rainfall amounts in the amount of about 6 inches predicted by meteorologists. Also, the sea surge expected to get as high as 6 feet. And on this pier, we see a number of high wind conditions and the sea surge beginning to swell. So generally, storm conditions being experienced right now, and Abaconians are bracing for the storm. As the memory of Monster Storm Dorian still lingers, hundreds of Abaconians are bracing for Nicole. The center of Nicole will approach the Northwest Bahamas tonight, moving near and over the islands of Abaco and Grand Bahama and approaching the east coast of Florida Wednesday night or early Thursday night. Major facilities, schools, government offices, including the Leonard Thompson International Airport, now closed. Early Tuesday afternoon, residents were busy erecting shelters and securing their properties in preparation for the major storm. Residents even making a mad dash at Maxwell's supermarket, stacking up much-needed supplies.
Well, we're taking this serious. You know, we were here during Doreen, so we've buttoned up and secured all of our properties, and we're now getting our last-minute shopping in. I'm just buying a few last-minute items. We did some shopping earlier this morning. But I'm here now, back again. The last-minute stuff I didn't get, mostly drink items, stuff like that.
After Dorian, it would be unwise not to be prepared. So, yeah.
What are some of the items you've got? What are some of the items?
I'm sorry. Just some canned items and some snacks. Yeah, for my father and grandson.
Over 200 residents now occupying 12 designated shelters in Central, North, and South Abaco. Residents taking no chances.
The people set us up in the rooms and stuff, make us feel a little comfortable. I lost a son in Doreen, so there's some painful memories. So I said, let me come to the shelter this time so I don't lose anybody else.
The emergency facilities being managed by Red Cross volunteers and officials from the Bahamas, social services, community activist Silbert Mills.
The building has been turned over to the Department of Social Services, NEMA. They have full control over this facility, and they have their shelter managers in place. The only thing we ask is that they leave it like they met it. I will say this, that we've had such tremendous cooperation from local government. The local government through NEMA has already provided supplies for the facility. They've got water here. They've got other paper products here at the facility as a backup. And we are thankful that now we're able to use this water system that the United States Embassy gifted us with, so that when the water system goes off, we will still have water here to flush toilets. People don't realize how important it is to flush the toilets with 150 people here using it.
Well, because I just got off the phone with Don O'Roll. He's the administrator for Hopetown, Abaco, and he tells me that there have been some 274 evacuations from homes in central Abaco. Now, these evacuees will be taken to the Central Abaco Primary School. He also tells me that there have been 240 as well. And these evacuees will be taken to the Patrick J. Bethel High School. That's a shelter there.
Well, that there was our Desmond Saunders, again, who's on the ground in Abaco for us. Now, we also spoke to Chairman of the Marsh Harbor Spring City Township, Roscoe Thompson, about the efforts of that island's local government groups to better prepare residents for Nicole's passage.
One of our major concerns is flooding throughout the township, with the drainage system not having the proper flaps out to the seawater. So with the rain and the seawater coming in, we will probably get some flooding through the town. People have put up shutters, taken precautions, evacuated the low-lying areas, tents, people that were still living in domes, and the trailers. So people have taken this very seriously after going through Dorian, and we will continue to monitor it. And local government is playing their part and doing their part over here in Abaco in the central area to make sure people are taken care of. We've assisted with putting plywood up in areas that the elderly and the most vulnerable.
Well, a number of visitors will be riding out the storm at several top resorts over in Bimini. Island Administrator Desiree Ferguson has this update.
We have about 17 persons at Bimini World guests, and the other two Blue Waters and Big Game. They have direction of the Big Game, and Big Game. They have about two guests.
Now, Northern Lutherans may not feel the full brunt of the tropical storm Nicole until about early Wednesday morning, but they're determined not to be caught off guard, as many of them spent the early part of the day purchasing food items and taking precautions to safeguard life and property. Island Administrator Stephen Wilson says there's also a fuel shortage on Harbor Island, and every effort is being made to rectify that issue before the storm lashes.
Unfortunately, the Sun Oil barge that normally would have come in last week, Saturday, had postponed and didn't give, I guess, the BPL representatives sufficient notice that they were not coming. And so what we were doing last evening was we had an opportunity to barge to take across a tank of fuel to Harbor Island, but there's a shortage of fuel on Harbor Island at the moment. And I think the idea is now to ask all of the hotels to perhaps utilize their generators, and so that we can shut down one or two of our generator on BPL side, so that we can preserve fuel for the moment.
Meantime, Public Works and Utilities Minister, the Honorable Alfred Sayers, says the government has approved in excess of $3 million in new equipment to address Harbor Island's water woes, hopefully once and for all.
The operator of the desalination plant, Aqua Design, there are certain challenges that they have had, and to mitigate against the frequency of these disruption, the government has commissioned a manufacturer in the United States to produce 2 storage tanks, which are being designed with a certain level of resilience in terms of glass lining and so on. And the time frame for that is 6 months. Those orders, and I know the first payment would have been made about 2 months ago. And in the interim, temporary storage facilities, each 1 million imperial gallons, are being installed to basically provide a temporary solution pending the installation of the tanks which are being manufactured.
The Bahamas Tonight, live at 11, continues after this.
This portion of the news was brought to you by Sun Oil Limited Shell, fueling journeys that matter.
You watch them grow and make plans for them even before they're old enough to talk. You spend a lifetime of sacrifice to pave the way for their success and create a tomorrow you too can be proud of. Can you tell who is the investor? At Leno, we believe everyone who has ever put a penny aside for a future dream is an investor. If you're new to investing, Leno's financial experts stand ready to design plans based on your goals. Let's sit down and explore the options one-on-one and see how, together, we can make your dreams come true. Whether considering traditional investments like a new home, car, your own business, security in retirement, or your child's college fund, we take the confusion out of the process and make an investor out of you. Call 396-3225 for an appointment. Leno, your bridge to the future.
Well, as you can imagine, preparation efforts intensify, as does Nicole, as she takes aim for the Bahamas on the way for the Florida coast. NEMA officials earlier today gave us an update on where things stand as they seek to ensure the best possible outcome. Lloyd Allen has the story.
Regarding subtropical storm Nicole, by Wednesday around 1 p.m., Nicole is expected to intensify, topping out at 75 miles per hour nearer to Grand Bahama and Abaco. Now, on Tuesday around 4:30, the National Emergency Management Agency hosting another critical meeting where Director Captain Stephen Russell says 36 Sweeting Key residents and others from Guanakee have since been evacuated.
As we speak, and as you'll see later, the storm is now on a path on a course heading west, with winds now up to 60 miles per hour and a speed of roughly 9 miles per hour. So it's definitely on a projected path to impact islands in the northwestern Bahamas, as we discussed earlier during the course of the week.
Now, Jeffrey Green from the Met Office indicating that added to the subtropical storm conditions intensifying, conditions around the country still are being watched by many.
Nicole is moving to the west-southwest at 10 miles an hour. We expect this trend to continue. Our more northwest trend would take place on Thursday.
Trevor Moss from the Ministry of Tourism indicating that at least one cruise ship has been diverted in addition to other adjustments.
We effectively engaged ESF 12 and our command center, and we will be operating that command center from 8 a.m. to midnight. In addition to that, we have staff for the ministry here at NEMA.
Sterling Moss, Director of Field Operations at BPL, also updating on contingencies, advising consumers to utilize rubber boots and other safety measures.
Our teams today have secured buildings and property and have bunkered down for the storm, having made the necessary preparations. BPL would like to encourage customers who will be affected by this tropical storm to prepare mentally and otherwise for the approach of this storm.
As you know, power outages will in all likelihood result as the storm approaches. As such, consumers on affected islands should note that BPL, as we have said earlier, may elect to shut off power to areas of our network fed from overhead power systems as soon as there is sustained winds exceeding 40 miles per hour.
Defense Force, along with police officials, remain on the ground. In addition to that, residents in the affected areas are being advised to continue to monitor meteorology updates as they continue, as the passing of the storm continues. Reporting from the National Emergency Management Office, for the Bahamas Tonight, I'm Lloyd Allen.
Well, thanks, Lloyd. Now, for added measure, law enforcement officers are posted across the affected islands to ensure safety and security. Assistant Commissioner of Police Shavargo Dame says Marco's alert has also helped with communication.
Today, our Commissioner of Police, Mr. Clayton Fernanda, held his ComStat meeting and was able to speak with commanders in New Providence and the Family Islands, in particular, those islands in the projected part of the storm. And those islands are Grand Bahama, Abaco, Bimini, Berry Islands, Eleuthera, and Andros. Our officers will be very vigilant on those islands. Looting will not be tolerated. As a matter of fact, no illegal activities will be tolerated. The Marcos Alert Mass Notification System has been tested, and today I am pleased once again to report that we were able to disseminate messages in Abaco and Grand Bahama in English and in Creole to those various islands, asking those residents in vulnerable areas to please evacuate.
Defense Force officers are assisting with efforts.
These teams are assisting with shelter security, EOC duties, and logistics or transportation activities. The team in Abaco is presently assisting police with roving patrols with focus within the Marsh Harbor area. All other Royal Bahamas Defense Force teams remain on standby and ready to assist as necessary.
Well, flooding a serious issue for the Rand Hospital during 2019's Hurricane Dorian, and according to PHA Managing Director Dr. Aubanet Rowe, it's still a concern. On the other hand, substantial work's been done to the roof of the Princess Margaret Hospital.
Sandbags in particular for that. We've also sort of moved where we are going to be caring for patients so that they're not right in the face of flood, hopefully. We've secured the roofs as much as possible, and, you know, we just stand to the test if they would withhold the roof. So there are concerns, and we're just praying for the best in relation to the flooding. A lot of work on the roof. So we're anticipating no leaks as an anticipation, and so we've done quite a bit of work. It's been tested over the past few weeks with a lot of the rain that we've had, and we've been successful in that. However, sometimes we don't know that there's a breach until we now, go through that process. We are prepared as much as possible. So, we have a limited amount of staff that works during the hurricane, but we definitely have those persons who will be able to assist us in the event that something happens.
Well, BTC has literally done it again, providing cost-saving measures to keep customers connected during the passage of the storm. From 7 this evening to 7 a.m. on Thursday, all prepaid customers will receive 1 gigabyte of free data, and all postpaid customers will receive unlimited data on all plans. The company's new CEO, Samir Bhatti, says it's about keeping families connected to their loved ones during this time. He says this will not only affect residential customers, but small, medium, and enterprise customers as well. BTC is grateful for its customers and patronage and is asking that they stay safe. Its offices in Grand Bahama, Abaco, Berry Islands, Bimini, Andros, Eleuthera, and New Providence will, however, remain closed until the all clear is given. However, the contact center will remain open, and customers can call BTC at 225-5282. Well, Bahamas Power and Light's hurricane protocols began pretty early in the hurricane season with the clearing of trees from power lines. Furthermore, Public Works and Utilities Minister, the Honorable Alfred Sayre, says BPL's taken stock of its needs to ensure it meets customers' demands.
It is also stocking up in terms of fuel and emergency vehicles so that they will be ready for a response. It has done an inventory of the various generation plants to ensure that there are adequate supply of fuel to take us through the hurricane.
An update in from the Water and Sewage Corporation following reports of a water main break in a number of areas here in the capital. As our Lloyd Allen tells us, after hours of work, crews have corrected the problem.
So if you visited the area of 2nd Street and Poinciana Avenue anytime this afternoon, you would have been faced with this kind of water. Now, according to crews from the Water and Sewage Corporation, they worked for several hours this afternoon correcting the problem. Company representative Arlington Bethel provided these details.
We had a 24-inch main that was leaking here on 2nd Street, the Grove, and Poinciana Avenue. Earlier this afternoon, repairs began, and it was completed by 8:30 this evening.
By the time ZNS News arrived at that location, crews remained on the ground conducting final checks.
We are now currently checking to ensure that all pressures have been restored, but the leak has been completed.
WSC issuing a statement just shortly after 6 p.m. Tuesday, notifying of the leak and determined several areas would be impacted from low pressure or no water supply, including Baintown, parts of Cable Beach, Wolf Road, as well as Constitution Drive. Bethel says since restoring services, there have been no new concerns reported by customers.
We haven't had any complaints since we've started, so we think everything is holding and everything should be back to normal. We hope and we expect that to be the case. It was challenging because, as you know, we have king tide, and it was very difficult to keep the hole dewatered with the rain coming down as well.
Now, as Grand Bahama, Abaco, Berry Islands, Bimini, and Ross in the Providence are expected varying impact from subtropical storm Nicole, the correction of this essential utility coming as some good news to residents. For the Bahamas Tonight, I'm Lloyd Allen.
A number of motorists ducked along lines for gas at the pumps and opted to do so hours before when ZNS News arrived at Esso and Rubis gas stations on East Street South. Shortly after 8 this evening, we met only a handful of drivers hoping to fill up their tanks. A few of them we spoke to off camera and say they were still undecided on whether to even do so, considering the capital would not feel the brunt of the storm. They reason that it's better to err on the side of caution. Well, from gas, we cross over to the mad dash for food, hurricane supplies, and medications as many here in the capital sought to leave nothing to chance. Fern Carey has that angle to the story.
Residents here in New Providence appear to be taking Tropical Storm Nicole seriously and are rushing to finalize their hurricane preparations as the system strengthens and continues its trek towards the northwest Bahamas. As of Tuesday afternoon, the Bahamas Department of Meteorology indicated that the islands of Eleuthera, Andros, and New Providence are under a tropical storm warning. It is news that head pharmacist at McCartney's Pharmacy, Clinton McCartney, believes is spurring patrons to stock up on their medications. He says the spike in customers started around 3 o'clock Monday afternoon.
People get a little bit nervous and they come in and they try to get all the essential medicines, especially the chronic disease medication, like people who have diabetes, hypertension, and also glaucoma, whatever. They try to get the medicine on time so that they would not be without it. We saw a little increase yesterday because people just found about it, well, people just learned about it basically in the last couple of days. So we saw more people coming in, and today I know we're going to be very busy, especially with the prescription drug plan. The only problem is that, you know, some people might not be due and they might panic. But once they have at least 7 days supply, they don't need to worry, because once they have 7 days supply of their medication, they would be safe.
Over at Super Value Food Store on Mackey Street, head cashier McLean Elaine says hurricane supplies are flying off the shelves, with customers queuing up early to beat the rush.
The rush started from the store open at 7 a.m.
And this busy shopper says apart from stocking up, she'll also be keeping a close eye on the storm in case she has to tweak her hurricane preparations.
Getting a couple items just in case. You know, you have to have your water and your little essentials, and you want to get some canned goods and so on. Just in case it's more than they say it is, or it happens more than we expect at the last minute. Remember Dorian? It turned around on us, so we need to be prepared. Okay, so I'm just getting some items to top off what I have at home.
The Bahamas Department of Meteorology is also urging residents in the Northwest Bahamas to rush to complete hurricane preparations and to continue to keep abreast of all notifications from the department. For the Bahamas Tonight, I'm Fern Carey.
Well, it was quite the rush at facilities across the island earlier today as residents and businesses prepared themselves for the impending tropical storm Nicole. But only hours later, it seems that the dash had all but come to a standstill. Now, Anthony Smith took to the streets and has the sights and sounds of New Providence tonight.
The streets of New Providence, the eve of tropical storm Nicole, appearing almost dark and empty. The only signs of life at the city's local hotspots where, contrary to weather reports, locals and tourists alike have gathered.
The weather, on the beach has not deteriorated to the point where people are afraid or running around, but it's been like this steady all day.
It's a stark comparison from that of pandemonium only hours before.
I have to try and get as much as I can to prepare for the storm.
The only further signs of preparations at service stations and inner-city grocery stores, where shelves were stocked to capacity, save for the basic necessities.
You can never be too sure. Anything can happen. The stores might shut down. You just want to be safe and make sure your house is stocked up in any event that something does serious happen.
And it's with this that residents warn others not to be caught in the midst of high winds, unprepared.
So be prepared for storms, no matter how small it is, no matter how mild it is. Stay indoors.
We are prepared. We battened down. We have everything locked up, secured in case.
While weather conditions may look the opposite of intense for now, officials have warned residents not to be lured into a false sense of security. The overarching message to stay safe and stay indoors as Tropical Storm Nicole hurtles on. For the Bahamas Tonight, I'm Antoinette Smith.
Well, we can also tell you that despite the Northwest and Central Bahamas being under a tropical storm watch, Portishead Dock was a beehive after 9 tonight, with a number of Bahamians having what seemed to be a great time on a slow Tuesday night before the storm approaches. But owner of TZ's Bayview, Ileana Bryan, opted out of remaining open, instead choosing to busy herself securing her property.
We're going to hangar down the windows, lock up the doors, probably board up a few things and put the generator inside to really keep things dry. So that's our most, important thing right now, making sure that things stay dry because we are here on the side of the dock.
Ryan says for the most part, she's happy to see that the majority of New Providence residents are taking the storm seriously.
Like as a nation, we are taking things seriously this time. So I think because other islands we've seen not being prepared, things happening quickly, Nassovians are really coming, taking things seriously this time. So that's a good thing.
You're watching the Bahamas Tonight live at 11. There's more after this break.
Comfort Suites Paradise Island is the best-kept secret in the Bahamas. Located directly next door to the Atlantis Resort, you'll receive all the privileges of an Atlantis guest with all the benefits of a Comfort Suite stay. Enjoy everything Atlantis has to offer, including Aquaventure Water Park, plus all the amenities of Comfort Suites. Free Wi-Fi, free breakfast daily, and kids stay, play, and eat free. Visit ComfortSuitesPI.com.
Nobody can talk about your business or a special event like you can. Do you want a way to bring your message to a large audience? You need a live ZNS radio interview. 5 minutes of airtime to let listeners know directly from you all about your company, product, or upcoming event. And now, for a limited time only, get 5 interviews for 25% off or 10 interviews for 35% off. Call the ZNS sales office today, 502-3800, and get on the radio.
Hey guys, it's that time of year again, the Atlantic hurricane season. Are you ready? Here's another ZNS hurricane readiness tip to help you prepare. Edward Albrecht, Vice President with responsibility for claims at J.S. Johnson, lets us know what insurance coverage we could have if we need to live elsewhere after a storm hits while our home is being repaired.
Under the hurricane peril, additional living expenses is not covered. It's covered under fire and escape of water losses, but under the hurricane peril loss, it's not. However, it can be added in for an additional premium. And that's probably worth it, considering that once you have that cover, it'll pay up to 15%, say, of the sum insured for rental or hotel accommodation while the home is being repaired. So if we use our same figure that we did before, $200,000, so 15% is $30,000. So you have that $30,000 buffer to provide for hotel or rental while the home is being repaired. So the contractor will come and say, oh, listen, it'll take 5 to 6 months to repair the home. So you will have that money there ready to pay for those accommodations to cover that period.
And does our policy help with debris removal after a storm?
Debris removal, clearing the site and making it more inhabitable, that is covered under the policy already.
This has been another ZNS Hurricane Readiness Tip to prepare you for the storm.
Hepatitis is the inflammation of the liver, which is the organ responsible for filtering toxins from the body, producing bile for digestion, and producing proteins and clotting factors. The most important cause of hepatitis worldwide is viruses, of which there are 5 main types: A, B, C, D, and E. Hepatitis B and C are major health challenges globally, affecting over 300 million persons worldwide. The suspicion of hepatitis may be a challenge, as there are typically no symptoms. However, if infected, non-specific symptoms may include decreased appetite, nausea, vague abdominal discomfort, jaundice or yellow eyes, and abnormal liver function tests. If not treated, hepatitis of any type can lead to cirrhosis and liver cancer, which leads to over 1 million deaths worldwide. If you suspect you may have been exposed to the virus that causes hepatitis, talk to your doctor today and get tested.
This public service announcement is brought to you by the Public Hospitals Authority in conjunction with the Medical Association of the Bahamas and the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas.
The Bahamas takes the lead in making the world a better place. The Prime Minister making that bold declaration during an address to world leaders attending COP27 in Egypt. With all the details, we turn now to a report from our Altavis Munnings.
So I come here with a simple request. Let's get real.
As Tropical Storm Nicole makes landfall in the Bahamas, that was Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, the Honorable Philip Davis's message to world leaders Tuesday at the United Nations Climate Change Conference, commonly known as COP27. Prime Minister Davis was adamant that he wasn't telling the world to overhaul the World Bank for this new climate era because it's the right thing to do. But he implored world leaders to get smart and act quickly to address the systemic risk of climate change. He feels multilateral banks must play a crucial role in scaling up financial options that will provide real solutions. While acknowledging the goal to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees is on life support, the Prime Minister basically declared what's needed most at this conference is to confront the radical truth.
Let's get real. It's only going to get worse. We are entering a new climate era that will drive extreme geopolitical and economic instability. Statements without binding commitments or enforcement mechanisms have been used again and again as a way to postpone real action. Yes, the world's wealthiest carbon polluters should pay for the very extensive loss and damage caused by their emissions. But getting real means understanding that it will be self-interest that drives decision makers.
While boasting that he lives in the most beautiful country in the world, Prime Minister Davis let the world know the Bahamas has what it takes to provide the kind of leadership and innovation that can contribute to meaningful climate change solutions.
Our mangroves, seagrasses, and salt marshes are a critical carbon sink. While others were talking, we took action and passed innovative new legislation to deal with blue carbon. We created a regulatory framework for dealing and trading in carbon credits. Other countries are already considering adopting our model. Just this past Sunday, we agreed in principle with the IMF to partner together, among other things, to determine how carbon credits can be used productively as a new asset class. Yes, this is what real life-changing action looks like.
Prime Minister Davis invited whoever and wherever you are to bring your climate solutions to the Bahamas in order to help convert our frontline vulnerabilities into cutting-edge solutions for all. For the Bahamas Tonight, I'm Altaviz Munnings.
Also drawing attention is the Grand Bahama Resort, whose multi-million-dollar deal has fallen through. If there's any good news to report, it's that the Davis administration has been able to reduce the $1.5 million monthly subvention to that 3-hotel property to around $1 million. Still, the thought of having to restart negotiations all over again, not an easy pill to swallow for Grand Bahamians, not having been this close another time before. But Tourism Investments and Aviation Minister, the Honorable Chester Coopers, renewed the government's commitment to making a deal happen, and that, he says, means doing what's right, not what's expedient.
We understand the fatigue of the people of Grand Bahama. We are empathetic. They've had to face Dorian, COVID, and 4.5 years of the Minister administration. We get that. I believe the people will understand that we are working for them diligently. We're making progress at the airport. We're increasing airlift. We're promoting Grand Bahama. In the meantime, we're doing what I believe are all the right things, taking all the right steps to ensure that not only are we providing jobs and entrepreneurship and other opportunities, but we're increasing value.
Well, the latest on sports when we return with the Bahamas Tonight, live at 11.
Nobody can talk about your business or a special event like you can. Do you want a way to bring your message to a large audience? You need a live ZNS radio interview. 5 minutes of airtime to let listeners know directly from you all about your company, product, or upcoming event. And now, for a limited time only, get 5 interviews for 25% off or 10 interviews for 35% off. Call the ZNS sales office today, 502-3800, and get on the radio.
Hey guys, it's that time of year again, the Atlantic hurricane season. Are you ready? Here's another ZNS hurricane readiness tip to help you prepare. Edward Albury, Vice President with responsibility for claims at J.S. Johnson, tells us when we should update our home insurance policy and how to tell if we have enough coverage.
As far as your policy being updated and sufficient coverage, optimally you would want to make sure that your sums insured mirror the value of your property. And one of the ways to do that is to have a professional appraisal done at regular intervals, perhaps maybe every 3 years, so that you know what the value of your home is and you can match that to the sum insured.
Now, should we inform our insurer about any home improvements?
Well, obviously, anything that you do to your house, any improvements or whatever, you want to make sure and let your insurer know. Because if you say, for example, you buy a generator or you add a section to your house, these changes change the values that are involved. And so your insurer should know so they can tell you whether or not your insurance should be adjusted to match the changes in the value. So any changes that change the risk, right, or the value of the properties, they should be updated and notified to your insurer.
This has been another ZNS Hurricane Readiness tip to prepare you for the storm.
Calling all Family Island businesses. Want more customers? Want to get seen and heard by a large audience? Want to advertise on the best place to get your message out? Then you need the ZNS Radio Network and the ZNS community page. And now is the time to advertise. Ask for the Family Island Business Package, starting at just $199. You heard right. That's $199. And let the ZNS Network help you grow your business. Call the ZNS sales office today at 502-3800.
The Sports Report is brought to you by Hoop Fest in Paradise, December 16th to the 17th at the Kendall G. Lysick Gym. The best in U.S. and Bahamian high school basketball. Tuesday Sports, everyone. I'm Amajal Knowles. Topping sports news, the impending passage of Tropical Storm Nicole already causing headaches in the sports world. As we understand, sources close to the situation, the Bahamas men's national basketball team's World Cup qualifying game that was scheduled to take place on Thursday in Panama against the host country is now up in the air. Speaking to anonymous Bahamas Basketball Federation officials, the game is likely to be rescheduled amid mounting concerns of the storm's potential impact, as well as difficulty of travel for some of the players. Bahamas coming off a tough 95-77 loss to Argentina, its most recent window of the qualifiers. In that game saw Bahamian NBA stars Buddy Hield and Kai Jones suit up for the first time together. BAISS softball and baseball championships kicking off yesterday at Freedom Farm, but unfortunately due to some inclement weather, the games were postponed. Before the stoppage in junior boys action, Queens College led Temple Christian 3-0 in the top of the second, and junior girls SAC would lead Queens College 10-0 in the top of the first. Speaking to officials, weather permitting, both games will resume from stoppage next week, Tuesday. Battling for the senior boys title of the Nassau Christian Academy Crusaders and the St. Augustine's College Big Red Machine. Senior girls title will be decided between the Crusaders and the Queens College Comets. Also scheduled to begin on Sunday are the 2022 North American Optimist Sailing Championships. While a number of international sailors have already made their trek to Nassau, there are others who are set to arrive later this week. Committee member Emma Tinkler gives us this update.
So far, we've had no disruptions as such. Tomorrow, we are expecting a lot of teams coming in. USA, they have over 20 sailors. Switzerland, Mexico, Peru, Puerto Rico. So there could be some disruptions to their arrival schedule. Also on Thursday, we have a lot coming in. Panama, Brazil, the Netherlands, Virgin Islands. When we have 20 countries altogether in the event. So there's 155 sailors in total. Plus all the entourage, which sort of almost doubles that amount. So at the moment, I'm not sure what's happening today on the water, whether they got a little bit of training in, the teams that are here. They may have done, but it's been very, very breezy. Generally, these boats don't go out in this level of wind, and certainly they won't be going out tomorrow.
Tinkler adding that she's optimistic for this weekend.
Obviously, some of the site preparations have had to go on hold. We were wanting tents erected yesterday, and that's had to be put off for another few days. But hopefully by the weekend, we'll be up and running and back on track. And everybody will just have to get a lot of last-minute training crammed in on Saturday and Sunday.
Okay. In college basketball news, Ole Miss Lady Rebels coach and Grand Bahamian Yolette McPhee-McCowan sent in her prayers for family and friends back home in the 242 in a tweet earlier today, saying she's praying for a Bahamian family as they brace for this hurricane. Now, as for the action on the hardwood, her women's basketball team started their season out with a dominant 72-60 win over the Kennesaw State Owls on Monday night in the SJPB Pavilion. Ole Miss began its season with solid numbers hours as 4 Rebels scored in double figures. They would take down Kennesaw State again 72-60.
The new group figuring a lot of things out. I thought that Coach Blue did a great job, had them really prepared to come in and compete. I expected that, and I think as we continue to go, the competition is only going to get harder, but I think for our group, we're just going to fly this plane as we go. You know, it's a lot of newness. A lot of people got to work out some kinks, and, you know, I'm just grateful we came out with the win.
And several Damon Division I basketball players opening up their seasons as well on the men's side. Frederick King and his 9th-ranked Creighton Blue Jays would look like one of the top teams in college basketball, handling the University of St. Thomas 72-60. King in his first collegiate game posting 5 points and 2 rebounds in 8 minutes of action. Garvin Clark Jr. and Sammy Hunter would hit the floor for the Akron Zips, who defeated South Dakota State 81-80. Hunter would finish with 4 points and 4 boards in 22 minutes of play. Clark would chip in with 4 rebounds as well. Ramad Dean would pour in 7 points and 4 rebounds as well as an assist in 14 minutes of action, as the Fordham Rams would improve to 1-0 on the season, taking down the Dartmouth Big Green 88-74. And finally, Franco Miller Jr. and his Florida Gulf Coast Eagles would improve to 1-0 as well, knocking off the USC Trojans 74-61. Miller Jr. would add 2 points and 3 rebounds in 11 minutes of action. That was Look at Your Sports on this Tuesday. A check on weather when we return. The Sports Report was brought to you by Hoop Fest in Paradise, December 16th to the 17th at the Kendall G. Isaacs Gymnasium. The best in U.S. and Bahamian high school basketball.
When a hurricane watch or warning is issued, medical emergency services are placed on high alert. For many persons seeking medical care, defining what an emergency is can be difficult to assess given all that is occurring during the storm. The following basic guidelines are designed to help you assess your emergency. If you are experiencing symptoms like shortness of breath, chest pain, severe pain, disorientation, extreme vomiting or diarrhea, vision disturbance, or suicidal thoughts, you should seek immediate medical assistance. If you are bleeding significantly or otherwise severely injured, seek emergency assistance immediately. Children presenting with symptoms like high fever and extremely listless or lethargic behavior need to be taken to the emergency room immediately. If you are unsure of the extent of your condition, you are advised to seek medical assistance immediately. Share your symptoms with the on-call doctor and get advice as to whether or not it can wait until normal business hours. Remember, emergency care is not a convenient option for basic medical care during a storm. The Public Hospitals Authority encourages members of the public to use these basic guidelines to help decide on whether something is an emergency or not. The authority reminds the public that in the case of an emergency, always call 919 or head immediately to the emergency room. This message has been brought to you by the Public Hospitals Authority.
Hey guys, it's that time of year again, the Atlantic hurricane season. Are you ready? Here's another ZNS hurricane readiness tip to help you prepare. Edward Albury, Vice President with responsibility for claim.
Time now for weather. In our final look at weather, we'll get you started with our satellite discussion, and we continue to monitor Tropical Storm Nicole. At 10 o'clock this evening, it was located at 27.1 degrees north longitude, 74.3 degrees west. That puts it about 150 miles to the east-northeast of Abaco, now moving towards the west-southwest at 10 miles per hour. Maximum sustained winds have increased to 70 miles per hour, and this system is expected to become a hurricane later on, late tomorrow. But as it continues to move towards the west, those tropical storm force winds should begin to impact the islands of Abaco as we speak, and that will continue during the course of the night with further intensification taking place. Reminder to residents in Grand Bahama and Abaco, at this hour hour, you are reminded to just simply stay indoors and ride it out until the all clear is given, as it is too late to do any kind of preparation. That should have been completed already. Our forecast for tonight calls for windy conditions with bands of showers associated with Nicole impacting parts of the northwest Bahamas during the course of the night, tomorrow, and right into Thursday. But by Thursday afternoon late, going into Thursday night, we can possibly see the all clear coming our way. 76 degrees for the low temperature tonight, and then tomorrow we're looking at a little rain from Tropical Storm Nicole. That's primarily here in the capital, but in the extreme northwest Bahamas around Abaco and Grand Bahama, those rain showers could be intense at times. 84 degrees for your high temperature tomorrow, and the extended weather forecast, wet conditions right through Thursday morning. Come Thursday afternoon, things start to let up, and we'll see some improvement in the evening hours, nighttime hours, and the weekend is looking pretty good for us weather-wise. Makisha?
Well, thanks, Basil. Some good advice there for residents in the direct path of a tropical storm, Nicole. Well, that does it for the Bahamas Tonight, live at 11. As always, thanks for watching, and good night.
Hey guys, it's that time of year again, the Atlantic hurricane season. Are you ready? Here's another ZNS hurricane readiness tip to help you prepare. Your roof is one of the most important parts of your home to prepare for a hurricane. Antonio Miller addresses the idea that a roof is only good for 20 years and tells us what to do to get the roof storm ready.
If you have a roof that is more than 20 years old, it's highly unlikely that the whole structure is going to be given away at the same time. You should be able to identify whatever weak spots that are in your roof. May that be shingles missing because of past winds, past storms. May it be drip cap rusting.
This has been another ZNS hurricane readiness tip to prepare you for the storm.
Assessing whether or not you have a medical emergency is sometimes difficult in a crisis and could quite literally mean the difference between life and death.